Chapter 11.
After returning to the classroom and replying to a few of Chen Fan's questions, he started reading the books he got from Old Teach.
He read briefly before his head started to hurt.
General studies included boundless knowledge from various fields. The central content was one's understanding of their own body. As a prospective martial artist, how could one train their body and spirit well if one did not understand the composition of their own body? How many bones were in the human body? How many principal arteries and veins there were? The blood circulation system.
Those were all knowledge that he needed to know.
He also had to learn the order of human bones and their names, the uses of the 5 viscera and 6 bowels, and also the definition of some words used exclusively in the field of martial arts.
All those plus some basic medical and pharmaceutical knowledge.
The materials that Old Teach gave him also included books such as The History of Martial Science Theory, biographies of ancient and modern legends, Basic Encyclopedia of Weapons, the basic essentials of martial arts combos.
Let alone reading them meticulously, Fang Ping already felt somewhat boggled after reading a few pages of a book that he chose at random. The books piled up in front of him were numbered at a dozen. Reading all of them from cover to cover would be an enormous undertaking. Even if Fang Ping read them like novels, the Gaokao would be very close by the time he finished all of them.
Fang Ping would have to prepare for the cultural studies exam too.
He had studied them who knows how long ago.
Even if the basics were there, he would need a long time to regain his past knowledge. My head hurts.
Although he was unhappy because Fang Ping did not tell him before he registered for the tests, Chen Fan started reassuring him when he saw Fang Ping turn ghastly pale from the side.
When there's a will, there's a way. You can't waste the registration fee, can you?
Fang Ping rolled his eyes. Was he only working hard for the 10,000 yuan registration fee in his deskmate's eyes? Chen ignored the gesture. He continued, "It's a pity that we're not martial artists. If we become martial artists, we'll be so energetic that we won't need to sleep for days. I heard that high-ranked martial artists think at the speed of computers.
The work one of those powerhouses can do is equivalent to that done by 10 ordinary workers and more, no matter if they're in business or politics. They are so energetic that it's scary."
There's a story that I heard.
When Grandmaster Ma was founding his business, he had limited monetary and human resources. During his peak, he did not sleep or rest for 7 days and 7 nights while he completed the work that another ordinary worker could only finish in a year. Grandmaster Ma was not as skilled in martial arts then. If he does that now, he can probably go for a month without sleep. Even thinking of this makes me green with envy. If we have the physical and mental strength of a martial artist, the cultural studies class will be nothing to us.
We might even get full marks too.
Chen Fan said all that with his face showing his frustration.
Many would receive full marks in the Gaokao every year.
Some senior 3 students from big cities were only a step away from being martial artists even if they had not achieved the milestone.
Under those circumstances, despite having to juggle multiple subjects, they still had astounding comprehension ability and memory. It was mostly these prospective martial artists who took first place in social sciences in all provinces.
Chen Fan's absent-minded words lit a fire in Fang Ping's heart.
Fang Ping's brow jumped slightly.
While Chen Fan did not have what it took, he did. Fang Ping had already experienced the advantages of high vitality. After increasing his vitality by a little the past day, he really did feel more energetic than before.
If not, he would definitely feel sleepy after staying up late last night. He did not feel sleepy at all. This was the advantage of a high vitality. It gifted ordinary people more energy. What was the purpose of the mentality displayed on his interface? Fang Ping had an answer deep in his heart.
He should give it a try next time. If an increase in mentality could augment his memory and ability of comprehension, maybe the tests in the future would no longer be a problem.
Forget taking first place.
Fang Ping would already be satisfied if he fulfilled the criteria. Chen Fan's absent-minded words had reassured Fang Ping a lot. It seemed like he would have to find ways to earn some money so that he could experiment with them.
Either an increase in vitality or in mentality would need money.
If he did not have any, everything was useless. Ellipsis. The classes during the day were mainly revision sessions. Fang Ping did not waste any time.
Most of the time he was reading instead of doing practice tests.
The teachers did not say anything when they observed his actions.
All students had full autonomy over their actions when it came to this moment.
They heard that Fang Ping had registered for the martial sciences examinations too, so they did not disturb him when he took out a book in martial sciences to read during their classes. A day passed by quickly. When the afternoon bell rang, Fang Ping did not leave with Chen Fan and the others, opting to go with Wu Jihao instead.
Wu Jihao smiled while packing his school bag. I see you've been reading books on general studies for the entire day.
How do you feel?
It's not bad.
They're not too tough, but there's too much and the topics are too varied.
Some of those won't come up in the exams.
After you make a copy of my notes, you can revise them.
If you have something you don't know, you're welcome to ask me.
Thank you for the trouble.
Fang Ping thanked him again. It was rare for Wu Jihao to say something like this during this crucial moment.
Some high-performing students kept everything to themselves when examinations were near.
It would be better for them if they were the only ones who knew everything. This was also because the martial science examinations were not limited to one class, of course.
Wu Jihao did not see Fang Ping as a potential opponent. His opponents were those from the elite classes, all the high-performing students in Sun City, or even from the entire country. Fang Ping, someone that did not understand even the most basic fundamentals, was destined not to be someone that he wanted to surpass. If he did not possess a big heart though, how could he possibly become a martial artist? The two of them chatted as they left the school. Ellipsis.
Wu Jihao's house was not far away from Sun City No. 1 High School. It was about a 10-minute walk from the school. It was also in a residential area, but the environment was nice and it was considered as rather top-notch among those in Sun City.
Fang Ping looked at the area when they arrived. He was somewhat surprised as he had assumed that Wu Jihao would live in a bungalow at the least. Fang Ping did not know much about this longtime classmate of his, actually.
They did not interact much, even in his past life.
He thought about it again and realized Wu Jihao's circumstances were quite normal.
Even though Wu Jihao lived in decent conditions, they were limited, else he would be in an elite class. If one did not qualify, they could just throw some money in to buy their way into the elite classes in high school. Of course, there were also people who wanted to excel in a normal class instead of being mediocre in an elite class, thus choosing to study in a normal class deliberately. Those were the exception. This area was of a higher class, so the management was more responsible. Unlike Fang Ping's area, where anyone could enter, the tenants here had to swipe an access card to enter. The two of them entered the area. While they were walking, Wu Jihao said, "The day after tomorrow, Senior Wang is going to come to our school. I don't know if we can get the chance to speak with him personally.
The school has finally done something decent.
Senior Wang is the idol of all normal class students. Senior Wang was one of the 2 normal class students who passed the martial science exams. Senior Wang's grades were ordinary before Gaokao, but he suddenly improved a lot in the final month. He shocked the pants off a lot of people when he was admitted into Nanjing Martial Arts University. I don't know if he has any secrets. If we can learn a little from him." Wu Jihao muttered. He felt a little regret. Even if other people knew his secret techniques, he would not speak of them openly. Hearing his words, Fang Ping had felt a little strange. Why did the senior's experience seem similar to his? Did he reincarnate too? However, as Wu Jihao continued talking about the subject, and it did not seem like that to him. It seemed to be the result of an ordinary spike. Ellipsis.
The two of them arrived at the Wu family's home as they were chatting. When he opened the door, Wu Jihao glanced at Fang Ping automatically, but when Fang Ping showed no emotion, that made Wu Jihao feel peculiar. The Wu family's home was not small, and it was a duplex house too.
The interior design of the 2 floors was considered high class even in modern times. Poor students like Fang Ping would normally show a degree of envy after entering the house. If they were not, there would at least be some expression of emotion.
Fang Ping really did not feel anything in particular.
His expression was natural. If he had known what Wu Jihao was thinking, he would definitely satisfy the other's wish. He really was not thinking about anything, though.
As for envy and surprise, that was bullshit. In his past life, Fang Ping bought a house of considerable size after he graduated from university, paid with his savings and with the support of his parents.
The interior design was simple, but it was not that shabby even when compared with the current Wu family's home.
Fang Ping bought it in the center of the province, too, so if he really wanted to compare, the price of his old house would probably be higher than this duplex house of the Wu family.
Also, he had ventured into the workforce years ago and had a vast amount of experience.
He had even toured the interiors of some individually located villas in Capital City and Magic City before, so why would he be impressed by a mere duplex in a small city? Ellipsis.
There was someone in Wu Jihao's home, his mother.
The woman did not say anything when she saw his son bring a classmate home.
She exchanged some pleasantries with him before Wu Jihao led Fang Ping upstairs.
He quickly retrieved his notes and handed them to Fang Ping and led him out of the study into a room next to it. This is the gym. The vitality measuring machine is here.
Wu Jihao opened the door to the gym.
The room was simple, and there were not too many appliances. Dumbbells, barbells, a treadmill, and a leg-raising machine were in the room. There was one other machine that Fang Ping had not seen before, even in the gymnasiums from his past life. It looked similar to a massage chair, but there was a screen connected to it. If he was not wrong, it would be the vitality measuring machine.
He had great intuition.
Wu Jihao led Fang Ping to the side of the massage chair and announced cheerfully, "This is the vitality measuring machine, but the one here in my house is a cheap version that cannot compare with the one in the hospital. That one is more like a space capsule, and it conducts a thorough check.
Ones like this can only check for an approximate value. Lie down on it, and I'll connect the sensor for you. You must exert some energy later."
Exert some energy?
Fang Ping looked slightly perplexed.
Wu Jihao explained with a laugh, "Our vitality is subdued and calm most of the time.
It'll only reach its peak when you're excited.
Not only should your body be excited, but your emotions should also be aroused as well. When measuring our vitality, our invisible qi is also a factor aside from our blood flow one. See the pedals below the machine? After it starts up, stomp on them with your might and pull your arms behind you as far as you can. Just use all your energy. It's nothing when you're doing a private checkup like this, but you must do your best during the physical assessment." Wu Jihao explained for a while, and he waited until Fang Ping nodded in understanding to gesture for him to sit on the machine. After he was set, Wu Jihao picked up several stethoscope-esque sensors from around the machine and placed them on Fang Ping's arms, legs, above his heart, and on his forehead.
During the physical assessment, they won't stick sensors on you, unlike this time. You'll enter a vitality capsule instead, in which you can move freely.
The capsule can obtain authentic results through a series of calculations.
Only then can your true vitality point be calculated. Wu Jihao then turned the screen beside the chair on and said hastily, "You can start now. Remember, strenuous activity includes your mental state. If you really can't think of anything, conjure up scenes from your favorite porn." Fang Ping was shocked as he was getting ready for exertion. This guy was not as well behaved as he thought, so it seemed. Ignoring the guy,
Fang Ping inhaled lightly before he stepped on the pedals with effort repeatedly and pulled his arms to both sides with all his might.
Wu Jihao stared at the screen beside him with his curiosity piqued. Chapter 12.
In the gym.
The number on the screen went up rapidly.
As Fang Ping started to huff from exhaustion, the number slowly froze.
113 calories. Wu Jihao's face was filled with disbelief.
Yes, this small vitality measuring machine in his home had a huge margin of error. But it was only 5 calories, give or take.
In other words, Fang Ping's vitality point was 108 at least and 118 calories at most.
How was this possible?
Wu Jihao did not intend to hold Fang Ping in disdain, but was this unscientific?
If he was Yang Jian, he would accept the fact that he had high vitality off the bat.
Yang Jian had a burly figure. It was obvious that he had a healthy body in plain sight, so him having a higher vitality was normal. Yang Jian having a high vitality was also due to his family's decent financial situation and a nutritious diet. Even if that was so, Yang Jian did not get such a high result at first, did he? Fang Ping. What Wu Jihao had initially thought was that Fang Ping's vitality would be higher than normal for him to have the courage to register for the exams. For example, maybe his vitality would be 102 or 103 calories. But now? The number shown was 113 calories. The lowest his points could be was 108 calories, which was the same as Zhang Nan or Zhang Hao. Among the 8 of them who applied, the lowest was 106 calories. Which was to say that Fang Ping was not in the last place. While Wu Jihao was still in a daze, Fang Ping was still pedaling diligently. After a while, Fang Ping could not help panting. Is it done? Wu Jihao came around and said listlessly, "It's done." He had wanted to say that it was done, but instead he suddenly said, "The signal might not have been working that well the first time. Try again." Fang Ping glanced toward him. Although he felt that the guy was not reliable, he still did as suggested because he owed him. Speaking of trying again, this test was really hard work and troublesome at that. After Wu Jihao reattached the sensors on him again, Fang Ping worked hard a second time, tiring himself out. Although the duration was short, the amount of work he had put in was not low. 3 minutes later, the number froze again, 108 calories. Wu Jihao calculated in his mind. The range this time was 103 to 113 calories. Combined with the previous result, Fang Ping's vitality was between 108 and 113 calories. The highest value was not as high as his. He was already at 115 calories. That said, his lowest value was already shocking. Wu Jihao thought for a while before saying, "It doesn't seem accurate." "What if you gave it a try again?" Fang Ping. At this point, how could Fang Ping not guess what was on Wu Jihao's mind? Thus he said, drenched with sweat, "It's fine. I'm exhausted and not in my best condition. Even if I test again, it won't be accurate." He was not wrong. When the body was exhausted, the value would only be lower and lower each time. A vitality of over 108 left Wu Jihao dissatisfied. A trickle of jealousy rising in his heart, Wu Jihao could not help but ask, "Do you eat nutritional foods that replenish nutrients in your blood? Or have you taken some medicine that increases vitality before?" Supplements were differentiated into 2 types, foods and medicine. Supplementing with foods would only yield an effect slowly after a longer time, but it cost less. Overall, it was way more cost-efficient than supplementing with medicine. Medicinal supplements yield results quicker, but they were expensive and worked a bit too well. The effects were wasted most of the time. He looked as if he feared that Fang Ping's reply would be outrageous. Fang Ping empathized with him and reassured him, "My parents feed me extremely nutritional medicinal plants every day. They've made themselves bankrupt buying good food for me. The entire family is hoping that I can pass the tests so that their losses can be offset.
His words seemed so fake.
Wu Jihao thought that it was impossible, but he accepted his explanation.
The physical assessment was near, and Fang Ning's result was still not as high as his.
He repressed his jealousy and said bitterly, "Fine. I thought that yours would be 105 calories at most.
Now, it seems that I was wrong.
Your vitality is within 108 to 113 calories. A household vitality measuring machine isn't that accurate, after all.
The result might be accurate after a few times, but you're not in peak condition, so it might not be that reliable.
If you want to know the accurate value,
you can go for a checkup at the #1 People's Hospital,"
Fang Ping said with a chuckle. "I'll see.
Thanks for this." "You're welcome."
Wu Jihao thought for a while and struggled to get the words out, but at last, he said, "If your vitality is really above 110 calories, you can ask your parents to prepare some nourishing medicine for you. You're applying for the first time, so there are a lot of things you don't understand. Normally, we'll prepare some medicine to boost our vitality before the physical assessment. Even those from less than average backgrounds will normally prepare a blood-nourishing pill. Those better off will prepare a qi-nourishing pill."
Blood-nourishing pill, qi-nourishing pill?
Fang Ping thought back to the advertisements he had seen in school. He said quickly, "I really didn't take much notice of it, because I didn't consider taking the martial sciences exams before. How much do those pills cost?"
A blood-nourishing pill costs $5,000, while the qi-nourishing pill would be a double, costing $10,000. "How about the vitality pill?" Fang Ping asked.
"That was something that was written on the advertisements at school. Depends on where you buy it."
Actually, the cost of those pills vary. In legitimate pharmacies, a pill would cost 30,000 yuan. But if the pharmacy you visit doesn't have a permit that allows the sale of medicine of this kind, you might be able to get it for 20,000 yuan.
It's hard to find, though.
Sometimes shops will refuse to sell it to you even if you find them,"
Wu Jihao answered.
He said again when he saw Fang Ping sink deep into thought. The minimum criteria for admission to Nanjing Martial Arts University was 112 calories last year.
It's debatable, though. It's only when you perform well in other stages.
Some candidates perform well in social sciences and decently in general studies, but their vitality were not as satisfactory.
Only then could they enter with a vitality of 112 calories.
If you don't get good results in other stages, being only on the brink of passing, then they'll set a higher standard for your vitality.
I'm paying constant attention to NMAU and asked a few seniors. Most of the students from last year had a vitality of 115 calories. The standard might be higher this year. I won't be worrying about getting in otherwise. As for you."
Wu Jihao paused before saying with uncertainty, "I can't say the accurate value of your vitality with confidence.
I advise you to go for a checkup in the hospital.
If it's over 110 calories, you can buy a vitality pill as a trial." "A vitality pill?"
Wu Jihao nodded. "Yes, these are all medicine that are sold in legitimate pharmacies. I heard that there are ones that work better, but they're not our business. If we don't become a martial artist, it'll be wasted."
The vitality pill is one of the most effective pills. If you're lucky and most of the nutrients don't trickle away, your vitality might increase by 3 calories to 4 calories after exertion.
It's a little expensive, though, at a cost of 100,000 yuan. Fang Ping abandoned that idea immediately.
Were they joking? He could convert 1 vitality point with that amount.
He did not know whether the ratio would be the same in the future. No matter what, there were loads of things he could do with 100,000 bucks. He was not going to buy that thing.
The vitality pill was the best there were, but its effects were limited to that.
The others would only be worse.
Fang Ping had been interested in those pills, but now he put that aside completely.
His 1.1 vitality was about 110 calories. If it increased to 1.2, Would he have a vitality of 120 calories? The effect that 10,000 yuan brought could compare to that of hundreds of thousands of yuan. It was only at this time that Fang Ping realized that he had made a huge profit. The money he spent would not disappear, too. After the checkup, Fang Ping did not stay for long. He walked downstairs with Wu Jihao. The Wu matriarch kindly invited Fang Ping to stay for dinner. Fang Ping did not stay, naturally. They exchanged some pleasantries before he hoisted his bag up and left. After he left, the Wu matriarch asked curiously, "I haven't seen this classmate of yours before. Is he new?" Wu Jihao shook his head and explained, "He's one of my classmates that applied for the martial science examinations. He hasn't done a vitality checkup before, so he came here for one." After he said that, his mother instantly knew that Fang Ping was not well off. If not, how possibly could he not have done a checkup before when the physical assessment was so near? She commented without thinking, "He's a little too thin. His vitality isn't high, is it?" Wu Jihao scratched his head and said moodily, "It's quite high, at 108 calories at least." "Say, Mom, I'm eating well and all, but mine was only 103 calories the first time. Did you mistreat me when I was little?" The Wu matriarch glared at her son. Mistreat, her *SS. They were on the brink of bankruptcy because they had to provide for this *start of a son as he prepared to take the martial sciences exams. The couple had toiled for years, but all they had left was this house. Ellipsis. Lakeview Gardens. Block 6, Unit 101. Fang Ping arrived home slightly late, and his family was all at home then. Before his parents asked, Fang Ping said happily, "Dad, I handed in my registration fees today, and my teacher gave me a set of study materials too. That's not all. Just now, I went to a classmate's house after school for a vitality checkup." A vitality checkup? Fang Mingrong did not pay much attention to martial-related matters, but he knew the basics. He asked, puzzled, "You can do it at home, too?" It's smaller, so the results aren't as accurate," Fang Ping explained before laughing. "Dad, do you know how high my vitality is?" Fang Mingrong did not know much about the topic compared to Fang Yuan. She ran over and said with a grin, 95 calories? You start huffing and puffing after a short run, so your body must not be too healthy. My friend's brother checked his too. 104 calories. I heard that he can already obtain admission to martial sciences with this. Fang Ping said with disdain. He wants to study martial sciences with a mere 104 calories? Does he really think martial sciences are that easy? And he was proud of it, too. Did he not feel embarrassed? Your brother got a result of 110 calories just after an impromptu checkup. It might be lower than my true vitality value too. Fang Yuan blinked, and then she, tsked, and turned to her father. Dad, Fang Ping is boasting again. My classmate told me that the minimum needed to pass the martial sciences examinations is 110 calories. That's old news. The minimum set by NMAU last year was 112 calories, and the average vitality among martial studies freshmen was 115 calories. This year's might be slightly higher, but your brother, I, possess extraordinary talent while my body is also growing stronger. That's why my vitality will definitely increase further. When the physical assessment comes, I will definitely fulfill the criteria. I have full confidence in passing the tests. Fang Ping said this to reassure his parents. They paid $10,000 for him after all, so he felt obliged to report his achievements. When he said that, Fang Mingrong and Li Yuying both froze. Was their son that close to passing the martial science exams? The couple was somewhat disbelieving, and they had doubts about whether their son was really boasting. Fang Ping exuded confidence when he was speaking. At last, he even pinched Fang Yuan's cheeks while he promised, my vitality is really at 110 calories. If not, I swear not to pinch Fang Yuan's cheeks in the future. Mom! Fang Yuan's face showed her displeasure. It was fine that he made a vow, but why did he use her as a condition in it? Chapter 13. Fang Ping said this with such conviction that the Fang couple had no choice but to believe him. After that, they were first filled with joy, and sadness and even some degree of guiltiness. It was obvious that they had believed Fang Ping's words, that he really possessed extraordinary talent. However, that also meant he had been held back by them. Once they thought about what would happen if their son was born in a wealthy family. They did not dare to think about it further. While at the dining table, they had smiles on their faces, but deep in their eyes was visible dejection. Ellipsis. After they finished their meal, Li Yuying collected the dishes and went into the kitchen, with Fang Mingrong behind her. Fang Yuan caressed her little tummy. She was in a good mood. That shitty guy Fang Ping seemed to have stopped stealing her food those past few days, so she always got to eat her fill. She felt somewhat unhappy when Fang Ping stopped stealing her food, though, as if the food was not as delicious as before. She brought up the previous topic, saying happily just after their parents left, "Fang Ping, can you really pass the martial sciences exams?" "Of course. But why do I always get the feeling that you're boasting? Trust me a little more, why don't you?" Fang Yuan nodded reluctantly, giving her brother some face. Next, she looked up and asked, "If you don't manage to pass, will you really stop pinching my face?" Fang Ping's expression turned gloomy as he turned to glare at her. "Are you stupid? Wait till your brother gets admitted to a martial sciences school and becomes a martial artist, and you'll have anything you want. When the time comes, I'll treat you to KFC, buy new clothes for you, and take you to the cinema. I'll also beat up the boys who call you names. Say, which option would you choose when compared to a few pinches on the face?" The little girl sank into doubt instantly. What Fang Ping said seemed legit. Fang Ping did not have the time to mind her. He got up and walked towards the backyard. Watching his stealthy moves, Fang Yuan asked him, "What are you doing?" "Dad and Mom must be discussing how much money they should spend on my supplements. I'm going to listen in." Fang Ping was not stupid. He could easily guess what his parents were planning to discuss after entering the kitchen together. He could not possibly go with his parents' opinions on this issue. If they really did spend a fortune to buy some kind of supplement for him in secret, the most expensive vitality pill, for example, Fang Ping would fume to death. At the same time, they were very likely to do just that. If they really bought it, they would only do so first and tell him after. At that point, regret was pointless. As opposed to that happening, he might as well think of a way to trick his parents. At this moment, Fang Ping needed money, stat. He had not thought of ways to earn quick money for now, and he would need some funds in hand even if he had ideas. Tricking his parents was not against his conscience. Everything would be recovered after he passed the tests. Even if he does not pass the tests, Fang Ping did not think that he would be useless for the rest of his life either. Ellipsis. In the kitchen in the backyard. It was almost as Fang Ping had guessed. Fang Mingrong asked quietly while he smoked with his brows slightly furrowed, "How much do we have in our savings?" 50,000 and a bit more. We've spent quite a lot on Ping Ping and Yuan Yuan these years. You go withdraw all of it after work tomorrow. We can't hold Ping Ping back. It's all on me. Some of the children of the higher-ups went for checkups in the past, while I did not think much of it. If not. Sigh. Fang Mingrong sighed. If Fang Ping did not register by his own volition, he would not have his son take the tests. Who knew that his son was naturally talented? Fang Mingrong was filled with regret at this point. The Gaokao was near now. It was unknown if Fang Ping still had a chance. Sighing again, Fang Mingrong said, "I heard our department supervisor say that he bought a big deal of supplements for his son and that they worked well. We should buy more nutritious ingredients for Fang Ping in the next 2 months." I'll go ask if there are medicines that help. We can borrow some money if we don't have enough.
After Ping Ping is finished with his Gaokao, we should make Yuan go for a checkup, too. If the two of them were both held back by us, we would be the ones who destroyed both of their lives.
Li Yuying had nothing to say to that. It was only after a while when she replied softly, "That'll do. I'll withdraw the money after work tomorrow." Quote.
The two of them discussed as Fang Ping listened in. When he felt that he had listened to his satisfaction, he walked into the kitchen from the entrance.
Seeing their son enter, the couple stopped talking about the matter.
Fang Ping acted as if he did not know anything as he said with reluctance, "Dad, Mom, I want to tell you something." Fang Mingrong extinguished his cigarette and replied, "Go on." "It's like this. Didn't I go for a vitality checkup in my classmate's house? That classmate is the one with the best grades in our class.
He's highly likely to be admitted into a martial arts university this year.
He told me that passing the tests is possible even under my condition, but I'll have to prepare for it." Fang Mingrong said quickly, "Tell us, what sort of preparation do you need?"
You won't need to worry about other matters aside from passing the tests. Dad will think of ways for you.
It's this. He said that it's best if I can purchase medicines with nourishing qualities. Fang Mingrong exhaled in relief. This was something he was prepared to do even before his son suggested it.
Fang Ping continued, "It's a little expensive, though.
That classmate said that it's best if I can buy a vitality pill. Vitality pills cost $30,000 if I buy it in a pharmacy."
He bought some before, but at a cheaper price than in the pharmacies.
His father's a businessman who knows the bosses of some pharmacies, so he can buy them with $20,000 each.
I'm thinking of asking him to buy one for me. Fang Mingrong furrowed his brow slightly. It was not because he was reluctant to let go of the money. 20,000 yuan was well below his expectations.
The main question was if it was reliable. 10,000 was already a huge sum in a normal family.
It would be troublesome if they were scammed. Fang Ping knew that his father would definitely worry about that. He continued immediately, "His family's rich, so he's definitely not lying. Plus he has good grades and he is going to take the martial sciences exams."
"Dad, we'll have to pass a political background check before we can advance into the next stage. If he scams me, I'll report the incident to the school and he'll be disqualified immediately." After some serious thought, I reached the conclusion that he's definitely not lying.
He's stupid to do otherwise. After we pass the tests, forget about $20,000. Even $2 million will seem like nothing.
Fang Mingrong hesitated before setting his mind on it.
He nodded and said, "It'll do.
I'll take a day's leave and visit his family tomorrow."
"Dad!"
Fang Ping interjected hurriedly, "They're all busy. If you visit him personally just because of a mere 20,000 yuan, it'll seem like you don't trust him."
"He's offering us help without being obligated to do so.
He only agreed to help me because he noticed that my result was decent."
"Who would be so kind as to offer help otherwise? If you agree, I'll visit them instead. Dad, is this okay?"
Fang Mingrong was still hesitating when Li Yuying at his side agreed, "You're right.
They offered help because of Ping Ping.
They're only doing this because Ping Ping has a shot at passing the martial sciences exams."
"Who are you?"
"A worker."
"Who would be glad to offer help to you?"
Fang Ping said, noting that his father was still silent, "It's Wu Jihao from my class."
"Do you know him?"
"It's him?"
Fang Mingrong remembered him.
He had attended Fang Ping's parent-teacher meetings, and so he had seen Wu Jihao's father before. Those with the best grades in class not only had an influence on their classmates but also their parents.
Although Fang Ping's class teacher did not have the habit of fawning on privileged people, he still prioritized his students according to their grades, and that was normal. During parent-teacher meetings, he would always something like, "Your son Wu Jihao is excellent. He has a high chance of passing the martial sciences exams," or,
He would have definitely passed the tests if he took them last year.
It was not the first time that the class teacher said something of the sort. Even Fang Mingrong had heard him a couple of times. He had seen Wu Jihao's father too.
He was dressed up better compared to them and even drove a small car to the parent-teacher meetings, unlike him who had gone on a motorcycle. Fang Mingrong did not believe that a parent whose son had a chance to get admitted into martial sciences would scam 20,000 yuan out of him. If this was after the Gaokao and Wu Jihao had failed, this would blow. This was happening before the Gaokao, though, and as Fang Ping had said, Wu Jihao would be disqualified if news of the incident got out. Reaching that conclusion, Fang Mingrong immediately said, "Fine. I have no problem with that. I'll let your mother withdraw the money for you. Remember to pay your respects to them and thank them for their help. You've not been admitted into martial sciences yet, and I'm embarrassed to visit. After you're admitted, we'll visit them together to convey our gratitude and treat them to dinner. Even if you don't, you must remember their favor too."
Fang Mingrong talked on.
This was a huge favor to him. A discount of 10,000 bucks was not insignificant.
He would have to ask his department supervisor the next day when he went to work in the factory to see if what Fang Ping had told him was real.
If the pill was cheaper than from the pharmacy, there was no need for external help.
Fang Mingrong was only a factory worker, but he was not dumb. If it were not for his son, he would avoid owing anyone else favors. Their financial conditions were limited. The 10,000 yuan he saved after the discount could be used to purchase nutritional foodstuffs for Fang Ping. At that, Fang Mingrong reminded him, "You should tell your friend about this first and pay him when he needs the money." "Yes, Dad, relax." Fang Ping nodded consistently, apologizing to him in his mind. "Sorry, Dad, I tricked you again."
Tricking him was the last resort. If he did not do so, his dad would probably purchase medicine from outside that cost a lot but yielded few results. The money would only yield the best results when it was in his hands. When it came to it, he could spend the wealth points that the money brought him and return the bills to his father. If he did that, would his wealth points be deducted?
Fang Ping thought that the possibility of that happening was big. Would it happen if he had converted them to vitality, though? No matter what, the more wealth he had, the higher the possibility of him passing the martial sciences exams. If he got in, his parents would probably not mind even if they knew that he had tricked them. Ellipsis. His parents did not doubt him.
After he sorted out the matter, he returned to his room only to discover that Fang Yuan was waiting for him with an expression that suggested that she had caught Fang Ping doing something dishonest.
"Fang Ping, be honest. Confess your sins."
Fang Ping rolled his eyes and reached for Fang Yuan's cheeks, only for the girl to dodge him speedily and grumble,
"Don't think of using this on me."
"Be honest. Were you telling the truth just now? That's it.
Little kids like you should worry less about adult matters. You'll know if what I said was true after I pass the exams."
Fang Ping did not bother explaining to his sister, so he brushed her off with an ambiguous answer.
Fang Yuan puffed her cheeks and muttered, "You can't lie, or else. Or else. You can't pinch my cheeks in the future." Fang Ping laughed and caressed her head. He said with conviction, "Relax.
Your brother isn't so desperate as to trick money out of our parents with this.
He was only doing it for the martial sciences exams and his future. He would not have done it if he had more time." Chapter 14.
After a tiring conversation, Fang Ping finally satisfied the young girl.
Fang Ping had owed her more debts for that. He did not remember how many good things he had promised the girl.
Ellipsis.
The next day, April 8th. Fang Ping was now famous, in Senior 3 Class 4, at the least. Wu Jihao had arrived in school before him. When Wu Jihao arrived, Zhang Hao and Yang Jian, already bursting with curiosity, came to ask for the details instantly. Old Wu was probably loath to admit to himself that he was shocked by Fang Ping's result the past day.
When the two of them asked, he quickly replied with a mysterious voice, 113 calories. He did not mention the result of Fang Ping's second checkup, 108 calories, because it was not as accurate as the first time due to the depletion of energy. The entire class was shocked after his words.
Was Fang Ping, one half of the mediocre duo, no longer mediocre?
They were the same people yesterday, in that they were both working hard for the social sciences examinations.
Fang Ping's results were not even particularly outstanding.
But now?
113 calories.
Those only taking social sciences did not know the situation the others were in.
There was something that they knew, though. The minimum standard set by NMAU was 112 calories.
Did this mean that Fang Ping's vitality had already surpassed the threshold that NMAU had set?
With that, how could he not be famous?
The would-be bearded Yang Jian muttered, dejected resignation evident on his face. Unreasonable. This is absolutely unreasonable. How could his vitality be higher than mine with that diminutive size of his?
Even martial arts had to be based on reason, but Fang Ping's result was beyond that. He could easily flatten 8 people his size. While Yang Jian was busy screaming, Zhang Hao beside him was twitching as if he had epilepsy. This is impossible. 113 calories. Mine's only 108 calories.
Zhang Nan said faintly from his side, mine's 108 calories.
I remember that yours is only 107 calories.
Zhang Hao said crossly, embarrassed, that was from half a month ago.
Now mine's at 108 calories.
Zhang Nan was unperturbed as she said lightly, fine. Yours is 108 calories.
Fang Ping's only at 113 calories. You! Zhang Hao was on the brink of tears.
He turned to Wu Jihao and asked, Old Wu, tell me, did you lie to us?
Wu Jihao spoke while reading a book. What would I lie to you for?
His vitality isn't as high as mine, so what business do I have with this? How can you say something like this? Zhang Hao demanded bitterly, think of how sad our lives are. We have to attend supplementary classes alongside normal classes and train our bodies at the same time.
We can't eat fried foods and skewers, and we can't drink soft drinks. We don't even dare to lick on a milk ice lolly during the hot summer.
That dude Fang Ping is inhuman.
Old Wu, aren't you even a little envious at the least? Wu Jihao lost his composure after hearing Zhang Hao's words. Ordinary students envied folks like Wu Jihao without realizing that he envied them too. Martial sciences students had to pay a huge price just to prepare for the martial sciences examinations.
Sometimes even that did not yield results. Like Zhang Hao had said, they were eating nutritional supplements while others were eating delicious foods. Did they think that nutritional supplements tasted good? They ate them every day until they threw up or started salivating at the sight of grilled skewers on the roadside.
To maintain their figures, to ensure that no accidents occurred, to gain admission to martial sciences. They gritted their teeth and were left with saliva in their mouths, resisting their urges. They accepted their fate because everyone else suffered the same as them for their future. That guy Fang Ping did not need to follow a diet at all. Comparing him to themselves was infuriating. Wu Jihao was also somewhat rattled as he grimaced. We can't do anything except accepting the difference, especially when he's so talented. Zhang Hao gritted out from behind his teeth. Doesn't this guy not exercise? We can't do anything about the vitality difference except to admit that he's stronger. We can ask him to join us at the gym together tonight and spar with him. Only when I beat him to a pulp can I vent my anger. While Zhang Hao talked, Wu Jihao's eyes blinked, and he said jovially, we're all classmates, so there's no need for you to do so. No, or else I'll feel unhappy with a stone in my chest. Wu Jihao advised him, isn't Fang Ping's vitality higher than yours? His social sciences better than yours, and his looks finer than yours. You really don't need to fume. We'll also get recognition when our classmates pass the tests. Old Wu, which side are you on?
Zhang Hao asked angrily. Wu Jihao resumed reading and replied without lifting his head, I'm studying.
I'm not on any side.
Zhang Hao wanted to continue his rant when someone tapped on his shoulder. Fang Ping's joyful voice piped up from behind him. Zhang Hao, if I had to say, I'd suggest beating Fang Ping up.
It won't be worth it if your anger affects your health. The corners of Zhang Hao's mouth twitched. He turned back and said meekly, I was joking.
How could I do that? We're best buds. How could I do something like that?
He said this with an expression of bitterness that did not match his words. Forget about beating him up. He would be the one being beaten up by a martial artist if Fang Ping were to pass the tests. Fang Ping did not bother arguing with him and said with a smile, Don't listen to Wu Jihao's foolish words. How can my vitality be at 113 calories? Mine's 115 calories at most. Zhang Hao rolled his eyes. This guy was deliberately riling him up. He sighed and did not believe Fang Ping's words. Now he was really curious, so he asked, Fang Ping, do you have any secret methods of cultivating your vitality? Duh. I would have been a martial artist long ago if I had secrets like that.
Fang Ping obviously did not dare to admit that he had some trick up his sleeve, so he just waved his hand dismissively. If there are really secrets like that, martial artists would crowd the streets, and we won't need to take the exams.
That's true too.
Zhang Hao sighed again and said somewhat bitterly, Now, Old Wu, you, Yang Jian and Lu Ruoqi have the highest hopes of passing among those in our class.
There's a 99% chance that we'll be just some side characters. There were 3 strong candidates, but then you came. God. You might as well kill me now. Wu Jihao, who was pretending to read, lifted his head and said, Our chances are very low too.
The average vitality is higher this year, so I'm a little unconfident.
Take our class as an example.
If we count Fang Ping in, there makes 4 of us who possess a vitality above 110 calories. Those in the other classes who have a vitality of over 110 calories also adds up to a number over 60.
There are more of them in the elite classes. Although there are few students in elite classes, there are about 40 of them who fulfill the criteria.
Add them up, and you'll see that there are over 100 students in Sun City No. 1 High School alone.
This is our school, after all.
The other schools in Sun City can't compare to us, but they're doing well this year too. Their candidates who fulfilled the criteria were as many as us in total. There are over 200 students with a vitality of over 110 calories in Sun City alone.
As he counted, Wu Jihao said ruefully, 9 students from Sun City received admission from martial sciences establishments. If the ratio is the same this year, it'll be 20-1 at least. Another martial sciences candidate sitting beside him shook his head and added, Jihao, yours is already at 115 calories. Almost no one in the normal classes has a result higher than yours. It's the same in other schools. I'll believe it if others said that they were stressed, but not you. What kind of stress are you under? Wu Jihao was from a normal class, but his vitality of 115 was among the best of all normal classes. According to the admission ratio from the year before, 2 students from normal classes got in. Wu Jihao was still ahead of his peers.
As they chatted, they finally forgot about Fang Ping.
Fang Ping was glad. He got to know lots of inside information while listening to them. There were more than 200 students in Sun City that had a vitality of over 110 calories. Of course, vitality was not the only deciding factor. There were always a few who would fail to pass the subsequent tests. After the physical assessment, all schools of martial sciences would determine a minimum threshold according to the results they had received. It was not the threshold for admission but for progression to the 3rd stage. This was also to help those who failed to save time and prepare for the social sciences examinations instead without wasting too much time. That is to say,
Those who failed to reach the threshold by the second stage were all eliminated.
The minimum standard for advancement to the third stage might be 110 calories this year. That alone closed the door on half of the candidates in class. Upon that realization, even the rambunctious Zhang Hao shut up. Not even being able to advance to the third stage after years of preparation. This disappointment hit the students hard. Many martial sciences candidates who had been eliminated became dejected and tended to screw up their social sciences examinations too. They could only study at mediocre universities after that. They were the embodiment of tiptoeing between heaven and hell. When they did not speak, Fang Ping did not interject too. He thought, seems like 110 calories is really not a safe number. There were already so many students in Sun City who fulfilled the criteria. No one knew if Wu Jihao's source was legitimate. If there were more of them, he might not be able to advance to the third stage, and that would be terrible. It seemed like he would have to increase his vitality quickly. Ellipsis. As the class started, the noise died down. Fang Ping behaved as he had before. Sometimes he studied cultural studies while he studied the course materials of general studies. No one interrupted him except for Yang Jian, who sat in front, and his deskmate Zhang Hao. The spirit of his deskmate, Chen Fan, seemed to be ignited somehow. He was doing his practice tests more diligently, only leaving the seat for the washroom once that morning. After the morning classes ended, Fang Ping was getting ready to go out for lunch when he was notified by Wu Jihao to visit Old Teach's office. There were only 4 of them outside the classroom: Wu Jihao, Yang Jian, Lu Ruoqi and himself. Wu Jihao explained as they walked, "Senior Wang is coming to our school tomorrow. The school will delegate people to fetch him, and the teacher said that he would try his best to vie for the chance. Welcoming someone does not generate profit, but you can interact with him when there are fewer people. He might share some advice when there are fewer people. You know, the third stage is organized by a few martial arts schools and the education department. Maybe Senior Wang knows some of the details. The syllabus is a little different every year." As Wu Jihao explained, Fang Ping said dubiously, "Then we shouldn't be the ones who welcome him, should we?" There were many classes in Sun City No. 1 High School, and they had 2 elite classes too. There was nothing special about the class. Wu Jihao laughed after he heard his words. "Did you forget who your class teacher is?" The teaching department head was his student. Arranging small affairs like this is nothing to him. Fang Ping remembered something after hearing his words. His class teacher was among the oldest in the school. The teaching department head was his student but in junior high instead of senior high. Lu Angguo used to teach in a junior high and had only transferred to teach senior high students after years of teaching. It might be the reason why he was not advancing as quickly as his peers in his career, although his career was longer. He was still an ordinary class teacher of a senior 3 class when his student had become the teaching department head. Fang Ping now understood why the teacher called them to his office. He glanced at the several people walking next to him, musing. He did not know if he was asked to join them because Old Teach had heard about the checkup he did the past day, or if Old Teach was showing care toward him because of his family conditions. Probably both. Fang Ping had only dwelled on it for a while. He thought that the class teacher was decent, at least. Chapter 15. It was not Fang Ping's first encounter with the name, Wang Jinyang. Yang Jian mentioned him on the very day Fang Ping woke up from his transmigration. Then, Chen Fan started talking about him. Then, Wu Jihao. Now, even his class teacher was talking about him too. The point was, in just a few days, Wang Jinyang's fame skyrocketed and turned him into a household name, although Fang Ping did not know much about him. Wang Jinyang was a student from an average class. With mediocre results, he managed to enroll in a martial arts university. In this cozy little Sun City, he could be considered a person of notable fame.
Wang Jinyang's fame cast a shadow over those students who managed to enroll in the martial arts university since last year. Ellipsis. After leaving the office, his class teacher's words rang clear in Fang Ping's head.
It was true that old Teach was lending him an extra helping hand this time.
Based on what Lu Angguo said, everyone else was faring better since they had been prepping for the martial sciences exam for the longest time. They knew what they were supposed to know. However, Fang Ping was different. He signed up too abruptly. If Lu Angguo did not have hopes for Fang Ping before, he changed his mind after knowing about Fang Ping's test result today.
Lu Angguo believed that Fang Ping could be the next Wang Jinyang, conjuring miracles in the world of martial sciences.
Coincidentally, there were many similarities between Fang Ping and Wang Jinyang.
Both of them were considered mediocre students from average families. Although Wang Jinyang's decision to sign up for the martial sciences exam was not as sudden as Fang Ping's, nobody expected Wang Jinyang to pass his exams with flying colors before Gaokao anyway. Lu Angguo thought that perhaps Fang Ping would have similar topics to talk about with Wang Jinyang if Fang Ping attended. He might even learn something.
Therefore, Fang Ping's name was included in the list of the welcoming committee this time. In the corridor outside the school office, Wu Jihao's face beamed with joy. He said with a wide grin, "I did not expect old Teach to be so awesome.
Our class is the only class chosen to welcome our guests." Indeed, everyone in the welcoming committee was from Year 3 Senior, 4. Of course, the school arranged for a car and a driver for that purpose. It was not an attempt to put on airs from the school or the teacher.
The truth was, Wang Jinyang's status would far exceed the teacher's after he graduated from the martial arts university. Therefore, many teachers would do everything in their power to gain his favor. Even so, Wang Jinyang communicated his wishes with the school before that he did not want to trouble them and thus would travel to school by his own means. Eventually, he could not turn down the school's overflowing warmth and generosity, so he relented by asking for a few juniors to greet him instead of troubling all the teachers. Despite suspecting that it was a mere attempt at being polite, the school eventually decided to only send students over to prevent any sort of awkward exchange.
Lu Angguo also made a brave decision. Wu Jihao had the highest chance of passing the martial sciences exam, so Lu Angguo thought he could send Wu Jihao over for exposure.
When he found out about Fang Ping after that, Lu Angguo thought he could give Fang Ping a chance too. Then, seeing how both Wu Jihao and Fang Ping were going, Lu Angguo remembered that Yang Jian and Lu Ruoqi from his class were performing quite well too, so he decided that he might as well send everyone there. With that decision in mind, old Lu stood his ground in front of the teaching director's office early in the morning and he did not budge an inch. Since the school principal was absent from school, the teaching director was placed in charge of many other affairs. Upon realizing a teacher from the very same school was blocking the office door, and thus, the path to everything else, the teaching director had no choice but to agree with a forced smile.
They were only the welcoming committee anyway.
Picking up guests was a simple errand after all.
Students from the elite classes might even consider it a chore.
Eventually, welcoming the guests became Year 3 Senior, 4, class's full responsibility. Continuing his sentence, Wu Jihao told Fang Ping and his friends, "We don't have to attend class tomorrow morning. We'll gather in front of the school gate before 9 a.m. and we'll depart for the station with the school car.
As for lunch, we're eating with Senior Wang too. In the afternoon, we'll accompany Senior Wang to school, and our job's done." Yang Jian and Lu Ruoqi nodded. On the other hand, Fang Ping asked curiously, "What's Senior Wang's martial arts rank?" This was a question that Wu Jihao did not know the answer to. After pausing for a while, he replied in resignation, "I don't know." Compared to all the social sciences universities, martial art universities are more mysterious. They don't share a lot of intel with the public. Neither of us knows what rank Senior Wang is. What we do know is that Senior Wang is only a freshman in Nanjing Martial Arts University. Although the university is top-ranked in Nanjing, it's actually quite average among the nation's martial arts universities.
If I have to make a general assumption, I'm guessing he's around rank 1 or rank 2.
Once he said that, the usually quiet Lu Ruoqi suddenly interrupted. Rank 1 or 2? Do you guys seriously think that all the students from the martial arts universities are martial artists? She left simply after throwing that statement at them. Once she left, Fang Ping brooded on her words and said, "Does she mean to say that not everyone studying in the martial arts universities are martial artists?" Wu Jihao laughed bitterly and said, "Seems like it. I'm not exactly in on the whole story, but I heard that some students from martial arts universities never made it as martial artists after graduation. However, things like these are still distant to us for now. We don't really know what's going on right now." Fang Ping gave a small nod. Now he knew that even if one made their way into a martial arts university, one would not necessarily become a martial artist. It was no wonder the respect people had for martial artists increased by the day. As for the question of whether Wang Jinyang was a martial artist, it was not easy to judge either. Despite it all, he was the first person Fang Ping was meeting who had an actual relation to martial artists. He had always been listening in on the martial artists' legends, but he was never in touch with any of the real martial artists. At that thought, Fang Ping was somewhat hopeful now. Ellipsis. After having lunch and making some photocopies from Wu Jihao's notes, the $50 in Fang Ping's possession announced its departure officially again. Without money, he was deeply ashamed by Wu Jihao buying him a meal. Of course, Wu Jihao did not really mind, but Fang Ping would remember this favor forever. In the few days since his reincarnation, he had been owing a lot of people favors. Wu Jihao, his class teacher. Sometimes, it was harder to return favors than money. Putting all these to the back of his mind, Fang Ping continued to read his books and revise on his own in the afternoon. Ellipsis. At night. When Fang Ping returned home, his younger sister and mother were both home. His father, Fang Mingrong, was still out. According to his family traditions, Fang Ping would pinch Fang Yuan's cheeks every time he returned home. It would not feel right for Fang Ping if he did not do it. Therefore, the sibling duo started fighting again. Li Yuying, who was busy preparing dinner at the side, felt rather entertained but also sorry for her two kids. There would never be peace and quiet when these two were around. As the sibling duo grew tired of fighting each other, Fang Mingrong arrived home too. The moment Fang Mingrong stepped into the house, he asked, "Have you taken the money yet?" Li Yuying nodded. Fang Mingrong turned around to look at Fang Ping and said, "Later, your mom will give you $20,000. Remember to thank that classmate of yours properly. And his parents too. I won't go to them personally this time. Once Gaokao ends, we must buy them a meal." Fang Mingrong consulted his workshop supervisor today in the factory too. It was true that vitality pills cost $30,000 each and pharmacies would not bargain. When Fang Mingrong asked if he could purchase one at $20,000, he was almost drenched in the director's saliva as he nagged on. It was possible to buy one at $20,000. This was not a secret anyway. However, which special snowflake one did Fang Mingrong think he was? The director himself could not find the means to purchase medicine at a cheaper price for his son's Gaokao last year. What more Fang Mingrong? Therefore, Fang Mingrong gave up on the thought of not depending on others. Currently, things were not going well at home. Even if Fang Ping managed to become a martial artist, he would need money in the future too. If he could not, then they had all the more reason to save up. $10,000 was not a small amount either. They should save as much as they could. If owing other people favors was what it took, then so be it. Once his dad agreed, Fang Ping felt relieved. With money, everything would be easier. Fang Ping was extremely busy for the past few days as well.
Therefore, even if he had the thought to earn some money, time was not on his side. Asking his parents for some money to guarantee his admission into the martial sciences was also an unavoidable move. Once his whole family finished dinner, Li Yuying went into her room to get Fang Ping his money. The moment the 20,000 bucks landed in Fang Ping's hands, Fang Ping's eyes flashed briefly and the numbers reappeared.
Wealth, 20,000. Vitality, 1.1. Mentality, 1. Fang Ping exhaled. His assumption was correct, only the money given to him by his parents would contribute to his wealth level. On the other hand, Fang Ping could not help laughing at himself. It seemed like he was even more capable than a currency detector now. Be it insufficient money or counterfeit money, he would know at a glance without even sorting through them. If only it worked for money that he did not own too. In that case, even if he failed the martial sciences exam in the future and was unable to become a martial artist, he could still be the national champion if he worked as a bank teller. Chucking all those whims aside, Fang Ping gave his parents the mandatory thank yous and locked himself in his little room. Ellipsis. In his room. Staring at the panel in his room, Fang Ping was slightly indecisive. Should he increase his vitality or mentality? He now knew the function of vitality. What would increasing his mentality do? Or would it be like as he assumed? That mentality would improve his memory and comprehension skills? Although he was not sure, Fang Ping made up his mind rather quickly. He would just try it out. He had 20,000 points of wealth anyway. If the effects of increasing mentality were not obvious, he could use the remaining 10,000 points to improve his vitality. He did not need a very high vitality level anyway. The best student in a number 1 high school possessed around 120 calories as well for now. If Fang Ping reached 130 calories and above, it might not be very beneficial for him. After he made his decision, Fang Ping used the technique from last time and muttered, "Increase some of my mentality or I'll beat you to death." Quote. The numbers did not change. Fang Ping felt a sudden rush of embarrassment. Was this really legit? Did it not work last time? After testing it out for a few times, Fang Ping finally understood that it had nothing to do with his unreliable spell. As long as he focused all his attention and filled his mind with it, only then would the statistics change. After concentrating for a long time, the numbers in front of his eyes shifted. Wealth, 10,000. Vitality, 1.1. Mentality, 1.1. Ellipsis. The moment his mentality points increased, Fang Ping felt a sudden freshness in his brain. It was felt as though a lady's gentle small hands were caressing his head. It felt wonderful. Ooh! After a long while, Fang Ping regained consciousness and expelled a mouthful of foulness from his body. He felt nothing but revitalized, as though all of his exhaustion of the day vanished without a trace. Since he was not in a rush to improve his vitality, Fang Ping hastened to pick up his textbook and started reading. Ellipsis. 10 minutes later, Fang Ping closed his textbook and recalled the contents of what he read. His eyebrows furrowed. He did not possess photographic memory as he expected. However, it was not without any effect. His memory seemed to have improved slightly. The effect was not obvious. Fang Ping did not know if he was trying to console himself or that it was the truth. However, he hypothesized that this might be related to the fact that his mentality did not improve too much to make the effects visibly felt. Similar to vitality, Fang Ping did not become a superhero despite reaching 110 calories. If he ever felt like challenging Yang Jian to a one-on-one battle, he was 100% sure that he would be beaten up into a complete pulp. Vitality and mentality were mere modifications to the body. One still needed to utilize it, train it. After mulling over these theories, Fang Ping stopped feeling anxious. It was fine as long as it worked. Now, he should be thinking of a way to improve both of these aspects. 0.1 points of improvement had no obvious effects, so what if he doubled it?
Considering how he still needed to be on a welcoming committee, Fang Ping did not stay up.
He went out and cleaned himself up. Soon enough, he drifted off to dreamland. Chapter 16. The 9th of April, Wednesday. When Fang Ping reached the number 1 high school gates, Wu Jihao and Lu Ruoqi were already there.
Now, they were all waiting for Yang Jian. Standing beside the two of them was a middle-aged man perched beside a parked 7-seater van. Once Fang Ping arrived, Wu Jihao quickly introduced him. Fang Ping, this is Mr. Zhang from our school.
Mr. Zhang will be driving us today. The middle-aged man was the driver allocated by the school.
Fang Ping greeted him briefly and was reciprocated with an equally polite nod. After some light banter, Wu Jihao gave Fang Ping a quick scan from head to toe before realizing in shock and exclaiming, "Fang Ping, don't you look energetic today?"
"I thought you'd be like me, losing sleep over the excitement for today." The current Fang Ping look recharged indeed. It even felt like his eyes were shining. Hearing that, Fang Ping could not help smiling and said, "Do I? A joyful heart makes a blooming countenance, I guess. I woke up late too." Wu Jihao did not pay him any further mind and continued discussing the arrangement for the welcoming event.
After a while, Yang Jian finally arrived.
Similar to the rest, the fellow was overexcited to sleep and thus, woke up late the next morning. The group did not waste any time.
Soon, they filled into the car and headed to the train station. Ellipsis. Sun City train station. While the driver stayed back outside the train station, Fang Ping and the rest filled into the train station and began waiting for Wang Jinyang. As there was still some time before the train's arrival, they stood by and started to chit-chat outside. A while into the conversation, Fang Ping began the topic, saying, "All of us here are fighting to become martial artists. Yet, until now, I've never seen a real martial artist.
I've been looking up information on martial sciences exam recently too, including those online. And I realized that none of them ever mentioned how to become a real martial artist."
Wu Jihao, do you know anything about this? Wu Jihao thought about Fang Ping's words and replied, "You weren't concerned about things like this before. So it's understandable that you don't know much about this.
For high schoolers like us, our main objective is to pass the martial sciences exam.
As for becoming a martial artist, that will come after university. As for the ways to become a real martial artist, we definitely won't be able to find the answers on the internet. As far as I know, to become a martial artist, you either have other members in your family who are martial artists to teach you, or you attend martial arts training classes." As a side note, Wu Jihao added, "I'm not talking about the kind of martial arts classes we have in Sun City. I'm talking about authentic licensed martial arts classes. Sun City doesn't have any classes like that."
According to the rules, you'd need to be at least a middle-ranked martial artist to teach martial arts classes.
Heck, there aren't a lot of martial arts classes like that in the whole of Nanjing province, what more Sun City?
Wu Jihao continued, "The third method, also the main path, is to enroll in a martial arts university.
If there are other methods other than these three, then I'm not aware of them.
One more thing, all three methods that I've mentioned just now are utterly useless to us.
At least before we enter a martial arts university, there is no hope for us to become a martial artist before Gaokao."
Fang Ping nodded lightly and asked, "Then, what do you think about the Gaokao candidates this year?
How many martial artists will be turning up?" Before Wu Jihao could open his mouth, Yang Jian butted in with a chuckle.
"There's no hope for Sun City."
"Not just Sun City, I'm afraid it's completely hopeless for potential candidates to become martial artists in the auspicious Sun City we belong to. In the entire Nanjing province, there are only 3 who made it as real martial artists before Gaokao last year. It should be pretty much the same this year.
Those people are truly blessed by God." Yang Jian was a little envious.
Becoming a real martial artist before enrolling in a university was something he would not even dare to dream of.
Fang Ping had more questions he intended to ask.
Before he could, a voice from beside them interrupted with a laugh. You don't have to feel sorry for yourself either. It's indeed true that high schoolers who become martial artists are geniuses, but everyone starts differently. Everyone lifted their heads and glanced at the direction of the voice. The voice belonged to a young man around their age.
He was in a casual get-up and had both hands stuffed into his pants pockets.
He was not exactly eye-catching. Despite looking ordinary with his skinhead, his eyes were piercingly bright. Realizing that he had everyone's attention, the young man who spoke just now smiled and said, "You're students from the number 1 high school, aren't you?" Hearing that, Wu Jihao hurriedly replied, "You must be Senior Wang?"
Wang Jinyang smiled broadly. He shook his head and said, "Let's not use honorifics. You can call me by my name or Brother Wang. Everyone's the same age here. I'm just a step ahead." His words confirmed that he was Wang Jinyang, the person they were waiting for. Wang Jinyang was a batch older than the group. If it was those few students from the elite classes last year, Wu Jihao would know them. However, he did not know Wang Jinyang. He came across Wang Jinyang by looking at his photo in the school's Hall of Fame. Hearing Wang Jinyang's reply, Wu Jihao breathed a sigh of relief and quickly added, "Hello, Brother Wang. We're Year 3 senior students from the number 1 high school." Wu Jihao started introducing everyone. Wang Jinyang listened patiently. After everyone was introduced to each other, he continued their previous topic. All of you are aware of what I mean when I said that everyone starts differently, right? All the students who become martial artists in their high school years are definitely from well-off families. There's no doubt about that. Otherwise, they have parents who are martial arts powerhouses or support from martial artists behind their backs. I'm talking about powerhouses who are at least rank 4 and above. If common folk like us pass our martial sciences exam, we would be the worst in the class. We should admit our competitors' talent and abilities, but we shouldn't use that to belittle ourselves. We shouldn't think that we're anything less than others. If we can't even do this, our future will be difficult. This could have been considered an early sharing session. Hence, everyone thanked him for that. Fang Ping observed Wang Jinyang for the entire time. He realized that Wang Jinyang was a rather talkative fellow of amicable character. Fang Ping breathed a sigh of relief. Their casual conversation continued as they moved toward the exit of the train station. Wang Jinyang asked some of them a few questions. When he found out that these were all students who possessed more than 110 calories of vitality, he could not help exclaiming, "The standards keep getting higher every year." It wasn't common to see people with vitality levels reaching 110 calories among my batch of candidates last year. As he brought up the topic himself, Wu Jihao went along and asked, "Brother Wang, when Nanjing Martial Arts University starts enrolling students this year, how many cals do you think they'd set the standard for vitality at?" Wang Jinyang flashed them a smile. As expected, this was the question all Year 3 senior students would be concerned about. He was not surprised at all. He was like them too last year. After thinking about it for a while, Wang Jinyang answered tentatively, "Standards like these are different every year. Last year, everyone's vitality was not as high as this year's. It's still alright here in Sun City. Over at Provincial City and River City, Nanjing Martial Arts University organized a checkup there once. I heard that there were plenty of students who had more than 120 calories of vitality. If nothing goes out of our expectations this year, I'm afraid the lowest limit will be 110 calories. For enrollment, it's safe to be higher than 115 calories." With that being said, Wu Jihao's face beamed with relief while Yang Jian and Lu Ruoqi sulked a little. Wang Jinyang had no plans to continue disappointing the crowd. He said with a smile, "Of course, nothing is set in stone yet.
Since you're all above 110 calories now, you still have the opportunity to increase it before the physical assessment.
Why do you think the martial sciences exam is always held around the same time as the cultural studies Gaokao?
That's because everyone is still busy growing their body. As they're improving every day, the martial sciences exam is postponed to days before Gaokao to give everyone a fair chance of competition. You might be 110 calories today.
Perhaps, you'll be 111 calories tomorrow.
That possibility exists.
Everyone nodded again, accepting the consolation Wang Jinyang provided.
Once they exited the train station, Wang Jinyang did not hasten to get into the car.
He scanned the exterior of the train station and sighed. During Gaokao, all I ever wanted was to pass my martial sciences exam. I told myself I had to pass my martial sciences exam. I gave up on too many things for that martial sciences exam.
But once I passed the exam, I learned many things I wasn't aware of before.
Now, I've realized how precious it is to live a simple life like this.
Wang Jinyang was only a freshman. He was only older than the rest of them by a year.
If he was a university student in his previous life, he probably would not feel as deeply.
However, the martial sciences students in this life were rather emotional.
In high school, they had to strive hard for their martial sciences exam.
After passing their martial sciences exam, they had to strive hard to become a martial artist. After becoming a martial artist, they had to continue the fight to become stronger.
Those who came from a well-off family background had it easier. For people with poor family backgrounds like Wang Jinyang, the pain they had to go through was unimaginable.
After heaving a sigh, Wang Jinyang turned to them with a smile and announced, "We're not taking the car.
My whole body is aching from sitting too long. If you're free, come along and accompany me on my stroll." Everyone beamed at his statement.
After all, the reason why everyone fought for the chance to greet Wang Jinyang at the station was to get more exposure and understanding. Wang Jinyang was also a high schooler last year. He could empathize with these people and thus, he thought he might give everyone an extra boost.
Wu Jihao jogged over to the van and informed Mr. Zhang, the driver.
Then, he rushed back to the group. Ellipsis. Walking along the streets outside the train station, Wang Jinyang smiled and said suddenly, "Let's find a place to sit down. We only need to be at number 1 high school in the afternoon, so we needn't rush."
No one would turn down this request. Wu Jihao took charge and led the way to a cafe in front of them.
Noticing how easily Wang Jinyang was in making conversation, Fang Ping took the chance and asked, "Brother Wang, if you don't mind, could I know what your rank in martial arts is right now?"
There was not a single martial sciences student who would be disinterested in this question.
Hearing that, even Wu Jihao could not help turning around to look at Wang Jinyang. They were all too interested in their prodigy of a senior. Wang Jinyang was slightly taken aback, but he quickly recomposed himself and smiled. Some things are better left unknown.
Curiosity kills the cat. I won't talk about it. Once you've entered Nanjing Martial Arts University, you'd know. What I can do, however, is give you some juicy gossip. A cheeky smile flashed across Wang Jinyang's face. You've heard of Li Yuanzhang, right? Wu Jihao answered immediately, I know. He's a senior from the elite classes who also made it into Nanjing Martial Arts University. Wang Jinyang replied with a grin. Very well. I feel no qualms gossiping about that brat. The reason I can embarrass him in front of his juniors is justified. He was the snobbiest among those candidates from the elite classes back then. We're all students. Yet, he'd always throw in a tease or insult at me whenever he felt like it. Think about it, guys. Did he have nothing better to do? Both of us enrolled in Nanjing Martial Arts University. And he told me how embarrassing it was for him to go to the same university as me. **CKER. People like that need to get beaten up. Wang Jinyang's words shocked everyone into silence. Senior Wang, who seemed to be an all-round nice guy,
was not as gentle as they thought he was after all. Wang Jinyang did not mind what they thought about him either. The mischievous look reappeared on his face as he continued, Li Yuanzhang and I started university at the same time, but now that our freshman year's ending, that fellow has yet to become a martial artist.
It seems like he might not make it in his sophomore year too. The probability is higher in his junior years maybe.
Fang Ping understood the implicit meaning behind his words. Wang Jinyang was undoubtedly a real martial artist. As for his rank, Fang Ping suspected that there was something more complicated about achieving rank 1.
Otherwise, there would not be a need to conceal it from them.
At the same time, when compared to Li Yuanzhang who entered Nanjing Martial Arts University simultaneously, it was obvious that Wang Jinyang was not the worst in their university.
All of a sudden, even Fang Ping was immensely interested in this legendary senior. Of course, not that kind of interest. Chapter 17.
By the time Wang Jinyang finished talking, they had reached the cafe.
Wu Jihao went to the bar to order some drinks. Nobody fought to pay because the school would cover these expenses anyway.
Meanwhile, everyone else found a secluded spot to sit and continued listening to Wang Jinyang.
All these matters related to martial artists are still far from your stage in life. The most important aspect is still your martial sciences exam for now. There's no point overthinking it. The martial sciences exam is often compared to crossing through 5 passes and slaying 6 generals. Truth is, it's not as scary as everyone thinks. Among the 5 stages, political background check aside, cultural studies and general studies depend solely on the effort you put into them. The determining stages are physical assessment and practical test. Wu Jihao spoke the moment he returned to his seat. Brother Wang is right. Most candidates get disqualified during these 2 stages. Wang Jinyang laughed and said, all of you here possess more than 110 calories in vitality. You won't have any problems passing the lower limit of the physical assessment. Your greatest obstacle is to pass the admission prerequisite. To be honest, the difference in vitality between all of you isn't that great anyway. Getting ready with some quality supplements like vitality pills before the exam can be truly life-changing. Of course, if you think taking vitality pills aren't enough, let me teach you a trick. Although perceived as a little trick to Wang Jinyang, any tips from a real martial artist would be vastly important for Wu Jihao and others, even if it was truly a little trick. Excitement took over everyone's facial expressions. None of them dared to speak. They all leaned in to listen. A burst of vitality doesn't just depend on vitality itself, but its state as well. Physical state, mental state, emotional state. Before the physical assessment, start by doing some warm-up exercises. Don't overexert your body. Keep your mind fresh and recharged. Don't even think about adding more practice on the final day. As for the emotional aspect, learn to be in full control of your emotions. It's very difficult to achieve extreme emotions. Happiness, sorrow, and anger. When one achieves the extreme state of emotions, it spikes one's vitality. Therefore, one's vitality will be higher than usual. However, I don't think you've been through enough in your lives to be able to unleash your emotion to the max. Unleashing our emotions? Everyone sank into a state of contemplation. Wang Jinyang suddenly laughed. Actually, I have a way to help you unleash the most extreme state of your emotions. Everyone beamed in delight. Fang Ping, however, glanced at him doubtfully. Fang Ping did not really care about this since he knew he could increase his vitality very quickly. When Wang Jinyang made the announcement, Fang Ping thought Wang Jinyang looked as mischievous as when he was insulting senior Li Yuanzhang just now. Fang Ping did not think that any good would come of it. As expected, Wang Jinyang said with a smile, some emotions are hard to command. With one exception, anger. Now, if I step on your face and spit a few times now, then during your physical assessment, you can recall these memories of being insulted. Ahem ahem. Wu Jihao almost choked to death. This legendary senior of theirs seemed to be less reliable every second they spent together. Ha ha ha! Wang Jinyang guffawed. He only stopped after a while and said, "I'm just kidding. But perhaps you can try that."
It's hard to make yourself extremely happy or extremely sad at will. Anger is the easiest. It's no surprise that you can increase your vitality by 1 or 2 calories under bursts of anger. The statement carved itself into Wu Jihao and the others' minds.
As long as they could increase their vitality by 1 or 2 calories, perhaps.
It was not that bad to have one's face stepped on, right?
Looking at their newfound eagerness, Fang Ping shuddered.
They would not readily humiliate themselves, would they? Needless to say, Fang Ping was 90% sure they would. In order to pass their martial sciences exam, what was the harm in getting a little bit of humiliation? Wang Jinyang did not dwell on whether they would actually carry it out. He continued speaking. After the physical assessment, the practical test won't be too difficult too.
It's nothing more than examinations of your impulsive force, stamina, and physical flexibility.
All of these are closely related to vitality.
The higher your vitality, the higher the probability of you passing. Of course, there's also those piles of trash that grew up in medicine bottles.
The only thing they have is impressive vitality, but they fail in everything else. They deserve to be eliminated, for sure. If a chicken is placed in front of your nose and you can't even kill it, you're thinking about killing human beings?
Killing a human being is much harder than killing a chicken.
Killing someone?
Fang Ping froze for a while.
When Wang Jinyang mentioned killing another person, he looked unfazed, as though he had really killed someone before.
In modern times like this, Fang Ping was sure even martial artists were restricted by law. There should not be murders happening. Right? Moreover, Wang Jinyang was only a freshman.
As though he detected Fang Ping's stare, Wang Jinyang gave a small smile and said, "In time, you'll figure things out. Of course, the prerequisite is that you pass the martial sciences exam and become a martial artist. Everyone is into martial arts now. Everyone craves becoming a martial artist. But how many among the ordinary folks truly understand what it means to be a martial artist?
More and more people are getting dissatisfied at the attention given to martial artists in recent years.
The powerhouses are able to start their own companies, pay a reduced amount of taxes or none at all.
Powerhouses get elected as officials. Even if they suck in government affairs, it won't matter that much. Powerhouses are granted a lot of privileges.
They are so privileged that everyone is starting to be dissatisfied. But so what? You reap what you sow.
That's how reality works.
You can't get anything by sitting around and doing nothing. While they're busy getting dissatisfied and thinking that it's unfair, little do they know that even the powerhouses feel mistreated too.
Wang Jinyang suddenly stopped talking.
A smile returned to his face. He continued, "I've spoken too much. This trip back to Sun City has made me very emotional indeed."
Wu Jihao and the rest of the gang did not really mind.
After all, they agreed that martial artists deserved the privileges that were given. However, Fang Ping took Wang Jinyang's words to heart. Fang Ping had his doubts previously. They said a martial artist possessed the power of 100 ordinary men. However, with so many ordinary men around, there should not be a need to obsess over martial artists, right? In this age of firearms, if one was not enough, if 100 or 1,000 ordinary men each held a gun, could a Grand Master evade their attacks? Now that he heard Wang Jinyang's story, it seemed like there was more than what meets the eye.
Unfortunately, Wang Jinyang had no intention to speak more about it.
Fang Ping thought that it was inappropriate to persist as well. Thus, he decided that he would only find out after becoming a real martial artist. As everyone engaged in their conversation, Wang Jinyang's mobile phone rang in his pocket.
He did not excuse himself from the crowd and answered the call.
He gave a few simple replies before uttering, "I'm heading to number 1 high school in the afternoon."
I'll go over again at night.
Wang Jinyang hung up after that without explaining what it was about.
Nobody minded either.
After continuing the conversation for a while, all of them left the cafe.
Initially, the school arranged for them to greet Wang Jinyang over lunch.
However, Wang Jinyang was also a resident of Sun City.
He decided to go back to his home in Sun City first after leaving the cafe. Fang Ping and the rest did not feel that it was appropriate to keep tagging along.
As they promised to greet him in the afternoon, their task had been accomplished. Ellipsis.
Once Wang Jinyang departed, Wu Jihao's face shone with delight. He exclaimed, "We've learned so much."
More than anything else, they found out about the technique to adjust their emotions, something that no one really understood before.
Wang Jinyang taught them a trick to overcome the practical test. Wu Jihao had always been hopeful about passing his martial sciences exam. Now, he was even more confident. Even Yang Jian and Lu Ruoqi felt like they had gained a lot from this and could attempt to apply for Nanjing Martial Arts University. On the other hand, Wang Jinyang disclosed another important fact too. Governor General Zhang of Nanjing was indeed attempting to achieve a breakthrough to Grand Master Rank 7. The reason behind this disclosure was none other than to encourage them to apply for Nanjing Martial Arts University this year. Governor General Zhang graduated from Nanjing Martial Arts University, the only institution that specialized in martial arts in the entire Nanjing province. However, there were also other two institutions that had intakes from both branches of sciences in Nanjing, and they were almost just as prestigious as Nanjing Martial Arts University. However, considering how Governor General Zhang was a Nanjing Martial Arts University graduate, he would definitely help Nanjing gain more martial arts resources if he manages to break through to the Grand Master ranks. When that happens, there would definitely be preferential policies in place to benefit Nanjing Martial Arts University. Wang Jinyang was certain about this. Hence, everyone in the group set their eyes on Nanjing Martial Arts University. After Wang Jinyang left, the group made plans with each other to fetch Wang Jinyang before they each left for their own respective homes. Ellipsis. Meanwhile, Wang Jinyang was getting ready to go home when his mobile phone rang once again. Wang Jinyang whipped out his phone and glanced at it. His eyebrows furrowed as he answered the phone. "Didn't I say that I'm going over tonight? What else do you want?" A voice of a middle-aged man echoed from the other end of the line. He said politely, "Mr. Wang, I'm sorry to have disturbed you. But we just received intel that our suspect has infiltrated the White Mountains. The White Mountains cover lands between the two provinces. If the suspect escapes..." Wang Jinyang's eyebrows furrowed deeper. He snapped, "We discussed this before. I thought we established that our target was to remain in his spot and that we'd only proceed after I arrive. Now, he's running away. Did one of you alert him?" The voice at the other side of the line fell silent briefly. It was apparent that Wang Jinyang assumed correctly. Wang Jinyang was clearly displeased. He harumphed and continued, "Why don't you try to search around auspicious Sun City or in the province? If it wasn't because of my sudden need for resources to achieve my breakthrough that landed me in my home in Sun City, I wouldn't have accepted this task at all." The man at the other end hesitated for a while before replying, "We've agreed on the terms, but the man must be captured for arrest. The other condition is, it must be Sun City that accomplishes this arrest." Wang Jinyang responded indifferently, "Of course. I'm just doing my job to help clear your way after receiving the money. The only reason I returned to Sun City this time is to guide my juniors in number 1 high school that are taking their martial sciences exam." "Good. We'll be sending over some information soon. I wish you Godspeed in solving this problem." "No worries." Quote. After a few more exchanges, Wang Jinyang hung up his phone. He rubbed his temples and heaved a small sigh. I hope he didn't run far. Otherwise, why would there be such an amount of money to spend on something pointless?
Wang Jinyang was frustrated too whenever he remembered the funds he needed for his breakthrough this time. The institution agreed to pay half while he had to fund the other half himself. If it were other students who came from rich family backgrounds, they had nothing else to consider.
However, he could only depend on himself.
He was then reminded of the students from No. 1 high school and he shook his head. Everyone wanted to become martial artists, but who'd truly know the hardships martial artists had to go through?
It seemed to him that those few students, Wu Jihao included, were from average families. Once they managed to enroll in Nanzhong martial arts, Wang Jinyang foresaw that they might truly understand pure disappointment in the future. Li Yuanzhang's problem of not achieving a breakthrough to become a martial artist did not originate from a lack of talent.
He. A mischievous laugh rang.
No one knew whose laughter it belonged to, or whether it was a self-depreciation joke.
Wang Jinyang stuffed both his hands into his pants pockets and sauntered over toward his residential area.
Sometimes, ignorance was truly bliss. Chapter 18. Wu Jihao and his friends said their goodbyes as they did not have classes in the morning.
Seeing that it was still early, Fang Ping did not have much of a mood to go to school early, thus he started walking in the direction of Lakeview Gardens.
On his way back, Fang Ping thought about what Wang Jinyang said.
Fang Ping had heard about the so-called technique that Wu Jihao and the rest cared so much about, but he did not pay much attention to them.
What was more important to him were the other things.
Though Wang Jinyang was just a freshman, it was obvious that he was much more mature compared to the other Year 3 seniors. From the things he innocently said, one could tell that being a martial artist was not all it was cracked up to be.
In modern society, a martial artist may look like a normal person in a sea of people, but it was not the case. In fact, they had their own realities that most normal people would never understand.
These days the news spread fast on the internet, but lest one forgets, in this country, if the web seems like it has gotten more liberal, it is only because the government allowed it. The information that they did not wish for normal people to know about would never appear on the internet.
A martial artist.
Fang Ping muttered, so how big are the differences really, between a martial artist and a normal person?
Is it just as simple as having the ability to fight?
A few days ago, Fang Ping was not in the state of mind to think about these things. However, after meeting a real martial artist like Wang Jinyang, he could not help but put more thought into it.
I guess I'm still not there yet. Fang Ping shook his head.
His standing in society caused him to receive less information and understanding. Some things, just like what Wang Jinyang said, were better left in the dark. When he becomes a martial artist, then all these alien and unknown things would slowly be revealed to him.
For the time being, he did not need to worry too much about it yet.
After walking for a bit, Fang Ping pondered and finally decided it was better to just convert the leftover 10,000 wealth points.
This year's examination was obviously way harder than last year's. Even Wu Jihao with his 115 calories vitality pill on hand, and having also learned the technique for emotional outburst, it was still no guarantee for him. This indicated that this year's competition would be extra stressful. Fang Ping did not even have 110 calories vitality himself. If he still did not level up and the unreliable system suddenly malfunctioned, he would be in deep trouble.
After making up his mind, Fang Ping started to focus on raising his vitality.
Swiftly, he could see the stats change. Wealth, 0. Vitality, 1.2. Mentality, 1.1.
Ellipsis. Just as Fang Ping was getting ready to receive the same incredible feeling he got when he received his first vitality upgrade, he suddenly started to moan softly in pain. His exposed arms, neck, and the back of his hands.
In these places, his veins popped up and bulged.
The veins were visibly prominent and were especially horrifying.
Fang Ping grit his teeth as he leaned against the walls of the shops on the street. He clenched both his fists tightly and endured the pain while stopping himself from crying out loud.
After God knows how long, Fang Ping's face was drenched in sweat.
Phew!
After exhaling the air from his mouth, without hesitation, Fang Ping cursed under his breath. FCK. Did I just get scammed?
The first time was a breeze. However, this time around, the pain nearly had him rolling on the ground.
The moment his vitality leveled up, he thought his blood vessels were going to burst.
Luckily, it came quick but left just as fast as well.
If it lasted just a little longer, Fang Ping was not sure if he would even be flailing around on the street. With the memories of it still lingering in his mind, Fang Ping rubbed his arm and furrowed his brows, saying, "Was my body unable to keep up with it?" The first time he leveled up his vitality, he was not really bothered by it. However, this time Fang Ping felt it as clear as day.
It might be due to his blood vessels being too weak, and leveling up resulted in him almost bursting his vessels.
This was just the second time leveling up, which led Fang Ping to wonder what would happen if he did it once more. He was worried that next time, he might become a human-shaped fountain spurting out blood from within.
Only with strong body strength will someone then be able to sustain a vitality level up. Seems like I should include working out into my daily routine now. Another thing to add to his already long list of responsibilities.
Nevertheless, improving one's body fitness was still a necessity, even if it was not for increasing one's vitality. Having a strong physique was important for the practical test too. At this moment, Fang Ping was no more different than the losers that Wang Jinyang had described as those who grew up dependent on pills. When this came to his mind, Fang Ping did not know whether to cry or laugh. Other people were worried about not being able to level up their vitality stats, but he himself was more concerned about the issue of whether his body was able to cope with a vitality level up. With another glance at his stats, Fang Ping wondered, am I currently in the 120 calories tier?
He thought about going to test himself again at Wu Jihao's home.
However, it had only been a day since he was there, and if he were to test himself again today and the stats showed that he was at least 125 calories, Wu Jihao would probably jump off the building.
Of course, there was a high chance that he was going to drag Fang Ping down along with him when he jumped.
Ellipsis. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, people were once again flocking the school gate for assembly. A few of them were carpooling and heading toward Wang Jinyang's house to fetch him to school. The area that Wang Jinyang stayed at was like any other.
At most, it was slightly better than Fang Ping's place at Lakeview Gardens. When the car arrived, Wang Jinyang was already standing at the entrance of his residential area waiting. Wang Jinyang, who was empty-handed in the morning, was now carrying his backpack, bulging with who knows what. Nobody asked him because it was not unusual to be bringing some local produce from university back home. As Wang Jinyang took his backpack and got into the car, he suddenly turned around to look at Fang Ping, who was beside him. With a suspicious look in his eyes and slightly furrowed brows, he asked, "Fang Ping, what were you up to this noon?" Fang Ping was stunned for a bit and his heart suddenly tensed up. Was it possible that other martial artists could sense if someone had leveled up their vitality? Turns out it was not what he expected.
Wang Jinyang, still with his concerned look, said, "Although I understand where you guys are coming from, that you guys will do whatever it takes just for the martial sciences examination. But, your body is your foundation. Some potent pills simply cannot be taken willy-nilly.
If you aren't careful, there will be a high chance of a horrific outcome.
I don't know what kind of medicine you've taken, but if your vitality increases too quickly, it might cause you a lot of problems. During this duration, you should train more so that your vitality may stabilize.
For at least a week, it is important that you do not use any other blood or qi-nourishing pills."
After listening to his words, Fang Ping sighed with relief and hurriedly replied, "I got it, thanks, Brother Wang.
I didn't have any experience before, and this was just my first time using any sort of pills. In fact, my blood vessels also felt quite swollen from it."
"Turns out it was your first time, no wonder," Wang Jinyang said softly. As a martial artist, he had very sharp senses. In the morning earlier, Fang Ping's vitality was obviously lower than Wu Jihao's. However, Fang Ping was bursting with vitality now and had vitality much higher than Wu Jihao's.
He did not know what Fang Ping took, but the effects of this medicine were shocking.
It was possible that these were banned medicine that had extreme effects on bodies. This was the first time Fang Ping had taken supplements, so he did not have much knowledge about it.
Plus, if this was only his first time taking a supplement, then his home environment must not be very good.
When this thought crossed his mind, Wang Jinyang did not press him further about what he took.
He only reminded him once more. Next time if you want to buy medicine and don't know much about the effects of it, just make sure to go to a proper medicine store to ask about it beforehand.
In society, some people would simply self-prescribe medicine, and when that takes effect, it would bring dangerous and harmful effects to the body. Not everyone gets lucky every time. Some have even died or become permanently disabled because of it. This happens to many people every year. But I suppose because this was your first time.
Plus, your foundation from before wasn't too bad, although you managed to be just slightly above the requirement. Nevertheless, you can't always count on your luck, just be aware of that. Quote. Okay, I'll be sure to take note of that. Thank you, Brother Wang.
Don't worry about it. Wang Jinyang's mannerism was friendlier now. He smiled and said, having said that, you can still grow from this experience. Wait until your vitality stabilizes, and after spending some time training harder, who knows, maybe this year there's hope for your martial sciences.
The conversation between them was overheard by everyone else.
When the conversation started, it sounded like Fang Ping had taken some kind of nourishing pills that noon to boost his vitality and harmed his body. What they did not expect was that in the end, Wang Jinyang actually said that there was hope for Fang Ping in his martial sciences. It was known that Wang Jinyang would have never given a comment like this earlier in the morning, not even to Wu Jihao. So when he heard this, Wu Jihao, who was in shock, could not resist the urge to ask, Brother Wang, did Fang Ping's vitality increase a lot?
Wang Jinyang chuckled and said, well, I'm not a vitality measuring machine. I can only roughly tell, but even so, it's pretty obvious that this kid has definitely leveled up quite a fair bit.
Fang Ping quickly smiled and said, it was just so, I bet there wasn't even much difference from before.
Ha ha ha. Wang Jinyang let out a laugh but did not expose him. He did, however, say to Wu Jihao, now don't you guys follow in his footsteps. He didn't understand what he was doing, so it was a pretty risky thing to do.
Medicine cannot be simply taken, even if they are conventional drugs such as vitality pills or blood and qi replenishing pills. As for the more radical drugs, those are simply out of the question. He just got lucky.
If he was just a little bit more unfortunate, his blood vessels would probably have burst by now.
To think of what would have happened is unimaginable. Ignorance truly is scary.
Wang Jinyang shook his head. If these students were a more educated bunch, they would definitely never attempt something like this. Upon hearing about blood vessels exploding, Wu Jihao and the other three simultaneously shrank in fear. Wu Jihao asked in a low voice, Fang Ping, what kind of medicine have you taken this time? Abashed, Fang Ping replied, after checking our vitality at your place yesterday, my dad gave me some money to buy some medicine to boost my vitality so that I would stand a better chance at passing my martial sciences. This morning after we split up, I was on my way back when someone on the streets asked me if I wanted any nourishing pills. Plus, it was cheap so I bought one. Quote. You. Wu Jihao stared at him with mouth agape as he could not believe what he had heard. Shockingly, he asked, are you crazy? Why would you believe some random nut on the streets? It was cheap and he said it was a vitality pill for just a few thousand yuan. Didn't you say that one costs around 30,000 yesterday? I can't tell who's crazier, you or him. How could you buy something worth 30,000 for just a few thousand? Wu Jihao was completely speechless, while Yang Jian just scratched his head as he said in a stunned voice, "Even I wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Fang Ping, you really are a crazy guy."
Originally, they had wanted to ask what kind of medicine Fang Ping had eaten, but now they had completely lost all interest.
A medicine with mysterious origin like that, if ingested, might send one down a path of unknown ways of death.
Moreover, if the guy really did lie to Fang Ping, he would have probably legged it to God knows where by now. This risky way of leveling up one's vitality was akin to gambling with one's life. Unless one was truly desperate, no high school student would have the guts to take the plunge. Ignorance truly is scary.
This was probably echoing in everyone's heads at that time.
If it were up to them, who would actually carelessly eat some random pills they had bought from the streets? From what he had gathered, Fang Ping naturally let out a sigh of relief based on the situation and just wrote it off as a mistake. He did not expect Wang Jinyang to have the ability to sense these kinds of things. It was apparent to him now that martial artists were much more formidable than what he had imagined them to be. Either that or Wang Jinyang was a lot more powerful than he had initially thought.
Maybe them finding out was not that bad of a thing. In case when they had a physical assessment for vitality later, Wu Jihao and the rest would not be too surprised.
Another advantage was that Wang Jinyang seemed to now think that Fang Ping stood a good chance at passing the martial sciences examination as he continued to give Fang Ping more specific tips on the way to school. The tips were mostly about physical training, but in the end, he laughed and said, "Looks like number 1 high school is in for some surprises this year again. Hopefully, you won't mess up in the other tests, and who knows, in just a few months, maybe we'll both be schoolmates." When that was said, Wu Jihao and the rest felt envious and jealous left and right, but if they were asked to go buy some medicine off some street chap and ingest it right now, they probably did not have the guts or the motivation to do so.
Chapter 19. While they were chatting, the car arrived at the entrance of number 1 high school.
They could see that many people were standing there even from a distance.
The one leading them was the dean of students. The principal was not in, so the dean of students himself came out to welcome Wang Jinyang. They treated him as if he was a minister from the city coming to inspect them. Wang Jinyang was only a freshman, but it was his identity as a martial artist that mattered to the school. At this time last year, the dean of students would have paid no attention to Wang Jinyang at all. One step made all the difference. Ellipsis. Wang Jinyang got out of the car and started greeting the higher-ups of the school, while Fang Ping and the others walked toward Lu Angguo's side. Lu Angguo was among those welcoming the guest.
Aside from the teachers, there were a few students too. Fang Ping did not know who they were, unlike Wu Jihao, who explained softly, most of them are students from the elite classes. Some of them are elite students from normal classes.
He was talking about the martial sciences classes, of course. Those who were allowed to attend were all hopefuls vying for admission into martial sciences.
If it was not for the fact that Fang Ping and the lot were specially appointed to welcome Wang Jinyang, they would not have qualified to be here. Except Wu Jihao.
Of course, that was before. Fang Ping now had the right, obviously. Lu Angguo was not one of the higher-ups, so he did not join in the conversation between them and Wang Jinyang.
Seeing them arrive, Lu Angguo asked softly, "How's everything?
Did all of you gain something from it?" Wu Jihao nodded, signifying that it was a fruitful trip.
He then said somewhat enviously, "The one who got the most from it was Fang Ping.
Teacher, his vitality has increased again. His might be higher than mine."
"How?"
Lu Angguo froze in disbelief.
The increase of vitality was not something that could be achieved in a mere day. Not to mention that Fang Ping's family was not so well off. How could he possibly surpass Wu Jihao that easily?
Wu Jihao understood the class teacher's surprise, so he quickly explained everything to him. Lu Angguo had nothing to say when he heard that Fang Ping had taken pills carelessly. Were all young people so fearless in the face of death?
The incident had passed, though, and Fang Ping had gained something from the potential train wreck.
Lu Angguo said, quite joyfully, "This means that miracles will happen in our class, 4, this year." Wu Jihao has hopes of gaining admission to martial sciences. If we add on Fang Ping, it'll mean that 2 martial sciences students will graduate from a normal class. Lu Angguo was elated at the mere thought of it.
Wang Jinyang and another student, both from normal classes, had amassed reputation and wealth after gaining admission to martial sciences.
Lu Angguo did not envy them, but their class teachers.
They had received over $100,000 in bonuses just because their classes, normal classes at that, had a graduate that made it into a martial arts university. That sum was equivalent to his salary of 2 years. Except for money, they gained a lot of opportunities for promotion and recognition among others. If they had gained so much after one of their students passed the tests, what would he get if his class had 2?
Lu Angguo felt like fainting. Would he become the first ever class teacher in number 1 high school, the best ever, to teach a normal class that gave birth to 2 martial artists? Plus,
Yan Jian and Lu Ruoqi, both from his class, could not be written off yet.
Lu Angguo was intoxicated by his thoughts.
He was a 50-something man, yet he was grinning like a fool. There were other class teachers beside him, including 2 from elite classes.
Someone could not help jeering as they saw Lu Angguo grinning nonstop. "Old Lu, maintain your image. Your students are still here." Lu Angguo's expression spelled out his joy.
He pulled Wu Jihao and the others behind his back and said with a smile, "Am I breaking the rules just for being happy?"
"Old Li, I heard that you're quite pleased with yourself right now, telling everyone you see that you'll be the shoe-in for the Best Class Teacher Award."
This teacher that Lu Angguo called Old Li was also an elderly teacher in his 50s, but the other was better off than him in that he was the class teacher of an elite class.
Old Li chuckled when he heard Lu Angguo's words.
"Why not?
If it isn't me, then are you assuming that old Zhang will receive it? Zhou Bin in our class will definitely gain admission to a martial arts university.
If he's lucky, he might have a chance to enter Capital City Martial Arts University and Magic City Martial Arts University too."
Those 2 martial arts universities were the most renowned in the country. MCMAU was in the southern region, while CCMAU was situated in the north. Those 2 schools were much more difficult to enter than NMAU. Lu Angguo turned his nose against Old Li's boasts, but he did not say anything else to that. Zhou Bin had a 99% chance of entering a martial arts university, but little hope of entering the Big 2. Zhou Bin was in the crowd, so Lu Angguo could not possibly discourage him, not when he was a teacher. Lu Angguo was all smiles. He did not answer, and instead he glanced sideways at Fang Ping and Wu Jihao. If 2 students in class 4 were admitted to martial arts universities, the Best Class Teacher Award would definitely be his. More students from elite classes were admitted, but elite classes were originally classes established by the school to cultivate martial sciences students, so their students getting admitted was not anything out of the ordinary. On the contrary, it was their fault if they did not get in. If Zhou Bin was not admitted by the Big 2, it would be futile even if more of Old Li's students were admitted. Old Li felt goosebumps observing Lu Angguo's laughter. What was this old bastard thinking about? It was not only the teachers who had felt a chill. Fang Ping and Wu Jihao were vaguely unsettled, too. Old Lu was gazing at them as if they were his sons instead of his students. Fang Ping could understand Old Lu's intentions, but he did not know what to feel. As they were whispering among themselves, Wang Jinyang had finished exchanging pleasantries with the higher-ups. Wang Jinyang walked toward the students standing in line waiting for him. He surveyed the group and nodded with a smile. Each batch is stronger than the last. This year's juniors are all much stronger than us from last year. The increasingly outstanding achievements of the students are all thanks to the efforts of the teachers. He was only a freshman, but he was eloquent and flattering. Even the dean of students at the side was grinning so much that his face gleamed crimson.
This was praise coming from a formal martial artist. The higher-ups in No. 1 high school were actually paying some attention to the graduates who got in martial arts schools, but they did not know the specifics because some information remained confidential. Those in No. 1 high school knew that only 2 out of the 5 who were admitted became martial artists.
Wang Jinyang was,
in turn, more famous among the two.
Some martial arts university graduates who were still in contact with the school always spoke of him with complicated emotions and unwitting sighs. Wang Jinyang was invited because the higher-ups had heard from them that he was an outstanding student in NMAU. Luckily, Wang Jinyang had agreed promptly as he was returning to Sun City anyway. He would not have come to No. 1 high school under other circumstances. Wang Jinyang spoke some more words of courtesy before he glanced at Fang Ping involuntarily. According to his senses, Fang Ping was among one of the students with the highest vitality. His only fell short when compared to the higher-ups prized student, Zhou Bin. When he thought of how Fang Ping's vitality had suddenly shot up in the afternoon when nothing was out of place that morning, Wang Jinyang had to admit that fate was capricious. At this moment, neither student nor teacher paid attention to Fang Ping. Wang Jinyang chuckled internally. The school was astonished when an anomaly like him appeared. It seems like they would be surprised again. No one knew if this would incite self-doubt among the higher-ups. Wang Jinyang did not bother with such affairs. He would not bring this up to anyone either, not when it was unnecessary. He praised those elite students casually before he followed the dean of students to the multipurpose hall. Ellipsis. Fang Ping and the others followed the crowd to the multipurpose hall too. There were already many students sitting in the hall. A casual glance numbered the crowd at no less than 200 people. These were all of the students in No. 1 high school that had registered for the martial sciences tests this year. There were less than 300 of them, including Fang Ping and the others. As Fang Ping and the others entered, they saw Zhang Hao waving at them. They walked toward him immediately, to where the other Class 4 students sat too. As they sat down, Zhang Hao asked hurriedly, "What did you guys get when you went to fetch Senior Wang?" "Is he strong?" Wu Jihao said with a smile before Fang Ping formulated a reply. "How will we know how strong he is when he hasn't battled with anyone else?" Senior Wang will talk about the other matters later. He did not mention the benefits an emotional outburst would bring, while the others kept silent too. They did not know if Wang Jinyang would tell the crowd about this. If he did, nothing would be wrong if they kept silent. If he did not, it was even better, as it could be one of their assets. Telling this to Zhang Hao was not the problem, but this guy was a blabbermouth. If this secret was passed all throughout the school, they would lose this advantage that they had painstakingly gained. Everyone had their own selfish intentions. As the others stayed silent, Fang Ping would not say anything more. Ellipsis. Wang Jinyang entered the multipurpose hall after a conversation with the group. Booming applause roared as they entered. Some girls screamed with emotion. Almost all students, Wu Jihao included, were envious when they saw this pan out. Quite a lot of students had an epiphany. This was what a powerful man should be like. This was what a martial artist, idolized and envied by students, should be like. Ascending to higher places with just a step. Fang Ping did not feel too awed. He was reading the schedule of the martial sciences examinations distributed by the school while the others gaped at Wang Jinyang. The political background check would start from April 10th and end in late April. Those who pass would get an examination ticket from the authorities. May 1st was the day when all candidates in Sun City would go to Ruiyang City for the physical assessment. The results would be revealed on May 3rd, and all martial arts universities in the Department of Education would then decide on the threshold they required in order to pass. May 7th marked the commencement of the practical tests. On May 10, the candidates would take part in the National General Studies examinations for martial sciences students. That was all for their schedule. After the General Studies examinations were done, they would only have to wait for the Cultural Studies examinations. The schedule was tight. Everything was lumped together so that the candidates could grow to their maximum potential, and so that those who were younger would not be disadvantaged. Some students at the age of 18 would still continue growing every day. Fang Ping felt a sense of urgency upon reading the schedule. It was only about 20 days until the physical assessment. Could he really complete everything in 20 days? His vitality was not a problem. The General Studies exams, though, was a huge difficulty to him, although it did not seem much of a problem to everyone else. He would have to think of ways to increase his mentality. Chapter 20. In the multipurpose hall of No. 1 High School. While Fang Ping racked his mind for ways to earn money and increase his mentality, Wang Jinyang explained how the martial sciences examinations worked. Ellipsis. At the same time. Lakeview Gardens. Block 6, Unit 201. A man in his 40s said good-naturedly, "Sister, you can relax. I promise not to damage any of your furniture. If any of them gets damaged somehow, you can deduct the loss from my deposit." Opposite the man stood a slightly older woman. She smiled upon hearing his words and said, "That'll be nice." This house was only furnished a few years ago. Although Lakeview Gardens has a little history, its surrounding environment is pleasant. There are restaurants, supermarkets, and everything else. The bus station is just next to the entrance. With a rent of only $600 a month, you're definitely getting the better end of the bargain. It's only because I'm not short on funds for now. Where else could you find a place like this for $600 otherwise? You're right, you're right. Thank you, Sister Chen, for looking after me, the middle-aged man replied with a good-natured smile. Sister Chen reminded him after some thought, "You told me that you're going to live alone. You must keep the place clean. If I didn't think that you could keep the place neat, I wouldn't have rented it to you." "Oh, right, everyone in this area knows one another, so you better not bring some unknown person home. Also, you must use a bucket to catch the water when you shower. The area leaks sometimes due to old age. There's a kid downstairs preparing for Gaokao. Don't make too much noise in the house. The sound insulation of this old house is a bit lacking. Also, you'll have to leave if we return to live here." The woman reminded him of all sorts of things, but the man did not show any signs of impatience, acknowledging her concerns with a kind smile instead. The woman was more relieved after seeing that he was reliable. At last, she handed a set of keys to him and said, "The house isn't too dirty because I come back and tidy it up sometimes. Everything you need is here. You'll only need to purchase some daily necessities." "Yes. Thank you, sister." "You're welcome. I'll leave first." Sister Chen did not stay for long. After she left, the middle-aged man closed the door quickly, sighed shallowly in relief and muttered, "This kind of ancient residential area shouldn't have CCTV, should it?" The man walked out to the balcony and looked outward. Standing in his spot, his brow furrowed, and he whispered, "Who knows if the people in Sun City can discover the hints I left." He had deliberately lured them to the direction of the White Mountain, so as to cause the misconception that he had run away from here. If he appeared to be no longer in their jurisdiction, they might no longer pay attention to him. The man massaged his temples as he thought of these issues. No, he did not care about those small fries in Sun City. It would be no big deal even if he was discovered. What he feared was that he would attract unwanted attention from the higher-ups. That little skill he possessed was enough for him to show off in small towns like Sun City. He would have died without even realizing it if he tried this in the big cities. The man felt powerless when he thought of this. He had to go overseas somehow. Mucking in some chaotic third-world country was much better than constantly worrying in Sino. Although Sino was huge, it seemed tiny sometimes. CCTVs were everywhere,
so people like him were easily discovered unless they hid in the mountains and in hidden corners. However, if he really had to live in those hidden corners, his daily needs would pose a problem.
Martial artists were not deities, they still had to eat and drink too. Plus, the residents in the countryside ran a tight ship with one another more often than not. If a stranger popped up suddenly, he would have to conceal himself even more. He exhaled and quit thinking about it.
There were no particular threats in Sun City, so he could recuperate here for a while before taking his next step. After he had achieved his breakthrough, he could inform his contacts and leave Sino once and for all. This ancient residential area did not even have a management team. It could be said that no one would notice him very much. There were restaurants and convenience stores nearby, and living here was easy, so he would not leave too obvious traces here.
He replayed the entire plan in his head and ensured that there were no gaps before exhaling in relief again. Deep down, he was slightly regretful, though. He should not have committed wrongdoing.
If he was not careless, he would have waited for a few years and collected all the resources he needed.
Martial artists were people that fought against time. He was already in his 40s.
If he waited for a few years, he would no longer have the chance to pursue martial arts further. As his age increased, his vitality depleted in turn. How could he not be anxious? He was still unwilling to concede. Ellipsis.
In number 1 high school.
After approximately 2 hours, the pre-exam guidance session had finally come to an end to raucous applause.
Fang Ping had wanted to greet Wang Jinyang,
but he was surrounded by a horde of students, so he dismissed the thought instantly. They did not need to return to class after the session and could go home. Fang Ping said his goodbyes to Wu Jihao and the others and got ready to depart, but then Wu Jihao called out, face alight with eagerness, "Fang Ping, want to come to my house tonight?"
Fang Ping's expression stiffened. If that was said by a pretty woman, there would definitely not be a problem, but what was a man like him doing, saying something suggestive like that? Wu Jihao did not think too much at his facial response. He continued jovially, "Aren't you curious about your current vitality?
Brother Wang said that you've got a shot at gaining admission to martial sciences, so your vitality must have been increasing sharply.
Do you want to come to my house for another test?"
Fang Ping sighed in relief.
Couldn't he finish his sentence in one go?
The people not in the know would misunderstand and assume that there was something between them.
It's fine. I don't want to trouble you.
It's not troublesome at all. Fang Ping, just come.
I don't want to bother, really. I have something to do tonight. I'll go when a chance comes up.
Fang Ping did not want to rile the guy up. Envy makes people crazy. Wu Jihao could still be normal as long as he did not know how much his vitality was. He would probably go off the rails if he knew that Fang Ping's vitality had already surpassed 120 calories.
Wu Jihao was a decent person. It would be undesirable to crush him into an unmotivated pulp. Although Wu Jihao was still dying to know his vitality, he let the matter go when he saw Fang Ping's resolve. Fang Ping then bid farewell to some other classmates before setting off to his home.
Ellipsis. Just after Fang Ping had left, Wang Jinyang turned down an invitation to have dinner together with the higher-ups. Coming to number 1 high school was only a side job for Wang Jinyang. By coming, he made them owe him a favor, and he got money out of it too. It could be said that he profited without any cost. The main source of profit was the job from the Department of Investigation Services here in Sun City.
Although 500,000 was not much, it was quite a hefty sum to Sun City.
Missions in small cities were easier to complete, too, and there was less risk.
If everything went smoothly, he could complete the mission with ease. He grabbed his backpack and walked out of the school.
After a short while, a black Volkswagen stopped in front of Wang Jinyang. He got in the car and as soon as he had sat down he asked, according to the intel, the target has entered the White Mountains. There are some tourists in the mountains during the day, so the target probably won't make his move at that time. Does this mean that the target is still in the White Mountains, in the area within Sun City's jurisdiction?
The driver said immediately, "Mr. Wang, what you said is right. The target must still be in Sun City. If he has really ventured out of Sun City, we'll catch wind of it.
The director has said that he'll inform you if the target has really left Sun City so that you won't be sent on a wild goose chase."
Wang Jinyang furrowed his brow.
If the target had really gone out from Sun City, the officers here could not capture him despite their desire to, because he was already out of their jurisdiction. If he received the instruction to not give chase, that did not mean that his mission was completed, but rather that he had failed.
According to how the department worked, there would not be any reward whatsoever if the target was not captured. He would consider it lucky if they even reimbursed his transport expenses.
After some thought, Wang Jinyang asked, "The target has lived in Sun City for a while.
Have your people not interacted with him before?" The driver chuckled dryly.
"The target is very wary of pursuers. Has your director never tried to lure him out?"
Regarding that, Wang Jinyang curled his lip.
These old farts valued their lives more than anything. They would not dare to set a trap or attempt any risky luring.
Is the target really at RANK2?
The driver was loath to divulge information initially, but then he replied immediately when he saw Wang Jinyang's expression worsen from the rearview mirror.
He's at RANK2, definitely.
The target committed crimes in other places to obtain the resources needed to achieve a breakthrough. But for now, it seems like he still hasn't collected enough resources.
Even if he has everything he needs, he hasn't had the time to achieve a breakthrough. We've been monitoring him closely during his time in Sun City.
Everything's normal.
We'll know if he achieves a breakthrough.
It seemed like it was not much of an issue. After all, breakthroughs do not happen overnight for martial artists.
Wang Jinyang nodded slightly and did not speak after that. Once he completed this mission, he would receive 500,000 yuan.
This, coupled with the 60,000 he received from No. 1 high school and his current possessions, would add up to 2 million in total.
He would have the amount he needed after applying for a subsidy from the school.
He recalled how just a year ago he was still struggling to purchase a blood-replenishing pill that cost a mere few $1,000s.
Now he had millions, but even that was far from enough. Ordinary citizens would probably find it hard to imagine earning so much money in a year.
Wang Jinyang smiled self-deprecatingly at the thought.
He had earned so much, yet it was never enough.
Except for those high-ranked powerhouses whose corporations were immensely lucrative, resources were limited, even for those working in the government. The fact that he could earn so much in a short time was nothing short of miraculous.
Some martial artists had no connections and no channels. The situation would be better if they had graduated from martial arts universities.
Those martial artists who relied on themselves had it worst. Many people found themselves unable to advance beyond RANK1. This man was an example.
Students or alumni of martial arts university would hardly commit crimes and risk being caught just for several millions worth of resources. He could not resist the temptation, though. He was living proof that some martial artists were not faring as well as society imagined them to.
Wang Jinyang hoped that he could find something else to do after he achieved his breakthrough.
Maybe he could become a legal representative for some small-scale corporation? Wang Jinyang dismissed the thought after considering it for a while.
While there was nothing much to do initially, he would need to solve some little problems on their behalf from time to time. If he was needed frequently, he might as well do some missions instead.
This was also the reason why martial artists were rarely willing to become legal representatives for businesses. It was troublesome, and they would not gain as much for the time and effort they had invested in it. Most of them who did so were casual martial artists with lots of time in their hands. Even so, not everyone fulfilled the criteria the companies set. They were more willing to employ university students or graduates with a clean political background. After all, according to the law, the business would belong to the legal representative. Nothing could be done if the martial artist they employed decided to take over the company themselves.
This was also why casual martial artists fared worse. No company, not even small ones, would dare to employ them, so they could only set up a company of their own if they wished to venture into business.
Wang Jinyang thought on as the car sped in the direction of the White Mountains.